or just interesting. They have interesting backstories, interesting hobbies, interesting life experiences, have interesting jobs, and any type of person like that, I enjoy talking to. Sometimes they're not always truthful, but the reasons why they lie can be varied, and then that's interesting to dig into. But yeah, if somebody, I'll talk to almost anybody that I consider to be interesting, whether we agree on things politically, socially, morally, whatever. Yeah, I don't know if that answered it 100%, but
Yes. Okay.
some people, kind of on that, some people will say things. I get this a lot in my chat, in my subreddit, where people will say things like, "Why does Destiny talk to this person? He's just gonna backstab him," or "Why does Destiny? Can he tell that he's being used?" Blah 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 blah. I'm usually pretty cognizant of all of that. Like, yeah, everybody could backstab me. People will use me to get more popular, whatever. But that's okay. I'm getting something out of it, right? It would be like if some girl that I thought was really hot wanted to fuck me, to get popular on like YouTube or whatever. It's like, okay, I don't care. Like, as long as I get to fuck her, right? I mean, it'd be fun for me. I don't care. If you get something out of it, I'm getting something out of it. Like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, that's kind of like the mentality I take. Whereas people will see if anybody's extracting any sort of value from me in what they perceive to be like an underhanded way. I mean, like, if I'm aware of it, as long as I'm having fun while everything's going on, like, I don't care. You know, like, if it came out tomorrow, for instance, that like you, Max, and Lauren, that all three of you, and Abba, not him, he's pretty big, but like say all four of you were like using me to get famous on YouTube. That all came out. There was some huge cabal. I'd be like, okay, I guess it's kind of shitty, but whatever. Like, it wouldn't, even if I would have known that in advance, it's not going to change how I interact with any of you, because I think you're all really interesting to talk to. So yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, it does make sense.
Okay.
So, okay, that's one way of viewing like social interaction and the reason you do it, and I think that makes really logical sense too. Because like obviously I talk to a bunch of people, but I also am running into this problem where I won't talk to everyone who wants to talk to me. So now people are treating them getting to talk to me as them being special, and I'm like, oh, maybe. But really, it's more like I think I'm going to get something out of this that will be interesting, and therefore I will engage. But if I don't think I'm going to get anything interesting out of it, I won't engage, because I'm like, nope, sounds like a hot mess. You know what I mean? Is that what you're doing? Or are you doing something different? Like, do you know that some people feel special?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's always a reality of how we divvy time up to people. People are always going to feel... I think that's a superhuman thing. I don't know if you can ever get away with that. Like, if there's somebody that you really like or somebody that I really like and they're putting time on another person and you don't get as much, like, you're going to feel a little bit like, oh, fuck, well, that sucks. Like, I think that's just that's just a very human thing, I think. I don't know if there's any way to get away from that.
Right. Okay, so most humans that are kind of typical, I would say, common, they have a tendency to like have like scripts of, oh, now we're close. Oh, you've had sex with me, now we're closer. Or, oh, you've met my parents, now you're closer to me.
Yeah.
In your world, for you, how does somebody know how important they are to you?
Well, that's kind of awkward because I'm giving away a lot there by saying that. I guess I've said this publicly. For me, it's usually a matter of time, how much time I'm willing to allot to somebody, especially like off-stream time. It's usually pretty hard to pull me away from anything or to have a conversation with somebody or to do anything, because there's a ton of people that want my time, or a ton of things that want my time constantly. So that would probably be the biggest indicator for me.
Interesting. Okay. Relating it to myself, I wouldn't say it's time necessarily, because I spend a lot of time with a lot of people, but it would be like how much I tell you about, like, oh, my vulnerabilities, which brings me to that conversation you had with Abba, which was also very interesting, because like sometimes I think Abba is so on point, and then other days I'm like, Abba, what the fuck is this take? And a big part of it is like bubbles, obviously. But you guys were talking about vulnerabilities, and absolutely with most women I know who are more than happy to have casual sex, our thing we're exchanging that's valuable is our vulnerabilities. So when men are vulnerable with us, it's like, oh my God, am I special to you? Like, that feels like a big deal. But it felt like Abba was almost uncomfortable with intimacy, versus I think most of us are craving it so we can feel seen.
I think
he wants that too. Go ahead.
This is a really big topic. There's a lot to unravel. The complicatedness is that I think this goes back to the deconstruction of the of like this idea of this concept of toxic masculinity. Okay, I think the issue is that people work really hard to deconstruct this, and it is a real thing, and there are a lot of toxic aspects to masculinity, but there are a lot of incredibly positive aspects to masculinity as well. And it feels like people were so keen, this is true of more than just toxic masculinity, but people were so keen to dismantle this that they wanted to throw out fucking everything. And academically or socially, it might be cool to say that, like, oh yeah, like I hate all of the traditional male archetypes, blah, 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 blah. But in reality, that is absolutely not fucking true. 98% of women want like a traditionally masculine man, not in the way that he's like starting fights with everybody and being an asshole, but in a way that like he can serve as like some sort of emotional bedrock, provide some level of financial security, be somebody that appears to be like independent, with his stuff together, has a drive, honor, integrity, all of that, like very traditional masculine things, right? So I think there's a lot of men that probably got thrown into this weird world where it's like, okay, well, women don't want any of this. Like every woman wants like a twink or a femboy. And that's not true. That's going to be a narrow subset of women, or it's just going to be women that are tweeting. And then when they get on Tinder or when they find dating people, that's not what they're going to be looking for. And so this is kind of more into the conversation I had with ABBA. You get into this weird world where like women are like, oh, like I want men that are emotionally vulnerable. I want men that are emotionally vulnerable. That's not true. Women want men that are still strong and emotionally well put together, but are willing to be vulnerable and can have some level of emotional back and forth with a woman, right? So like a traditionally masculine male guy that can never have an emotional conversation with you is like, well, what the fuck? This sucks, right? You want a guy that can be strong, his own emotional thing, but also make space for you to be emotional and to be able to like reciprocate that or reflect that, to have those conversations. But the way that it's shown so much in like pop culture and everything is it feels like the messaging was that like women want guys that are like will cry when they see pretty puppies and will like be very emotional all the time, and women don't generally really want that thing. So I think when ABBA was talking about, and I'm extrapolating from his personal experiences, so from the ones he told me, so this it might be totally off, but it sounds like some men are confused because they'll like meet a woman and they'll like either cry often or cry like on a second or third date over something, and the woman will be like kind of turned off, which is super normal, and I would expect that because the man in that case kind of seems like a weak person. But the men are confused because like, well, hold on, I thought you wanted men that were really emotional and cried all the time. So I think that like mismatch of like signaling like really mind fucked a lot of guys, like millennials and zoomers and shit, and I think that's where a lot of that confusion comes from.
I feel like the confusion is so relatable because on another front, when I look at like people in the ABBA and Preach like bubble, they're always like, I want women who are gold diggers. I want women that are like good mothers or good at cooking. And I'm like, okay, great. I'll get a job and buy a house and do all these things. And they're like, we don't want your money. Don't buy a house. We don't want women who make money. And I'm like, and I'm like, it feels like, so that's why I think I get down to none of this matters. Like if you're going to cohabitate, but like either find the person that you actually want or settle and be constantly like nerved. I can't do it. So I can't like settle.
I wonder what they want.
Then
probably like
I
a blood
also don't
decay.
need a relationship to fulfill my happiness. I get a lot of ways. So when I see these things happen,
I would
really
imagine a hunter.
We're all saying
Hunter
we're
would
all
be
not saying the same thing,
primo,
that's the
unless
issue.
you want a rogue. But
I guess I
then we
think
don't have a
people just have a
bloodlust.
different variation of what intimacy looks like. There's that episode of Friends where Jennifer Aniston's dating Bruce Willis, and he's really strong and older, and then she's obsessed with like, tell me your childhood, tell me your feelings, and then he cries about his childhood and won't stop, and then she's not attracted to him anymore. And I think I feel the same way because I'm bisexual, obviously. Like dating women, if you trauma dump on me too early, I'm gonna be like, red flag, why are you trauma dumping on me already? But if you tell me something that's important to you that maybe you don't let the internet know or social media, that you want me to know just in case you don't want, like, I tell people all the time things in private, and I'm like, hey, if you don't want to engage with me anymore because of this thing, I'm just gonna let you know now, so we don't have a second date. Then some people are like, Brittany, don't tell them that on the first date, wait to the third date. And I'm like, no, because then they're gonna have feelings for me already, and now they're gonna cloud their judgment on whether or not they can actually handle this thing I'm telling them, versus just like, but so there's always, I feel like the right person is just the right person, and everyone else is just people you go through.
I mean, I definitely don't believe in any type of soulmate stuff. I don't. You're not necessarily. You're just saying like a person that would click well enough would be the right person for you, right? Yeah, just make sure.
Right.
Yeah, I think we had an off-stream conversation about this where I used the castle analogy. Do you remember this at all? Basically, yeah, sure. So like the idea is that like vulnerability is cool, but this sounds really toxic when I say this, but I'm just being honest, right? In a way, you have to earn the right to be vulnerable with somebody, right?
Yes.
Yes. So like I come off as a very stable, very confident, very type A person. I come off like this generally in most areas of my life. So if I'm with a person and I have some level of vulnerability, it feels like to them that they're seeing something, oh wow, this is like really unique, like he's normally never like this is really cool, blah blah blah. That's the feeling that they're gonna have in their mind. But if you come across as somebody that's like kind of crying or being whiny or money all the time, blah blah blah, and then you're with them personally and then they're like emotionally vulnerable, then it's like okay, it's like it's like the difference between like in a household, like when dad cries, you know that like shit is fucked, but when like the 8-year-old child cries, it's like, yeah, they do this all the time, who the fuck cares, right? It's like that kind of thing, right?
Yes. Okay. That's funny because I'm one of those people who like, I do cry at like babies and flowers and anime and I cry at everything, but then I'm not a divulger much. Like somebody, we've been talking about this on VC a lot in Discord where people are like, well, Brittany, what's that? Because there's a part of me. I've told you this before. There is a part of me, and I'm looking for the person who's going to see that part of me, because that's what I'm looking for, right? And I'm like looking. I'm like, are you it? Are you it? It doesn't matter if I don't find it, but to me it matters that I try. And then if it fails, it fails. It's not a big deal, right? Because like I'm a go-getter. I can't explain to people what that thing is. So, okay, I hate to say this, but I ended up testing people, and I didn't realize I was doing that totally, because I thought testing was like, orchestrate a whole scenario in which they can fuck up or not fuck up, which I think is horrible and malicious.
Sure.
But I actually do have a test that I ask people questions, and then depending on how they answer, it allows us to go in a direction, which allows me to eventually divulge that thing that I'd like to divulge to somebody. Then they can make a decision after that if they still want to be around me. I'm not trying to get them to want me and then I tell them. I'm just trying to get them to the point where I can tell them, and it won't be the worst thing in the whole world.
There's a lot of the connotations, and I kind of blame the red pill or like MRA, whatever community for a lot of this shit. There's a lot of words that like feel very kind of gross when we say them, because they can be gross. But there's nothing wrong with like testing somebody. Like testing can be like a super blatant thing, or testing can be like a very subtle thing. Like a very blatant test might be like, you're on a second date and you're like, just curious, what do you feel about kids? Like that's a really blatant test. Like I need to know if you want kids or not, because that's an important part of whether or not we're compatible. A more subtle test might be like, hey, I'm going out with my friends for a night. Like, do you want to come and hang out with us? Because I want to see how you get along with my friends. You won't say the last part. You'd never say the last part, but you want to see how they get along with your friends, because that can be really important. And that could be like, it's still a test, but it's very subtle. But yeah, people hear like test. I think when people try to gamify things too much, I think it can be toxic. But like in reality, I mean, like we're always testing each other constantly. Whenever you ask a question is like kind of a test, you know, in a way, depending on how you look at it. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel that way with you, where I feel like we're really comfortable in our skin and who we are. So I don't feel like desperate energy from you. I don't think I feel desperate towards you. But sometimes I feel like we're neighbors and we both have a wall up, and I'm like, oh, hi, Steven. And you're like, hey, Brittany, what's up? And I'm like, hey, what's up? All right, bye. And then it's just like nothing happens. And then I'm always wondering, like with you, I'm like, I really like him. I hope we have a friendship. Oh, what does that mean to have a friendship with him? Well, I don't know. It doesn't mean inner circle. It doesn't mean ride or die necessarily, right? Because I keep that very like specialized. I don't invite a lot of people in, but good friends that aren't gonna fuck each other over, like that would be nice. Well, what does that mean? Does it mean like I'm gonna hang out with him twice a year? Maybe every 5 years? It doesn't matter. Like we'll build that naturally, right? We'll naturally build a relationship of intimacy, and it will happen over the next like 100 years or 5 years or 2 years, who knows. I can't pretend like I don't think about it, right? And that's the thing, is I'm not just following some script. I wake up and I think, who do I want in my life, and who do I actively want to pursue? So I actively keep people out of my life or invite people in. You don't seem have an outward standard. Like I'm just saying it openly, but you're like, oh, I talk to everyone. Yes, but what does intimacy look like with Steven? What does closeness mean with Steven? And if it's just like, it is what it is, it will happen when it happens, that's a good answer too. I think that's why people like Max and other people form intimacy around you, that I'm like, why are you assuming intimacy? I don't get it.
So this is like a really confusing thing, or this is like a really, this is a hard one, because for me, like, if let's say there's like 0 to 100 to know about a person, right? I think that for an average human, for like a stranger, they might let them in on like 15 or 20%. For like a friend,
change everything.
Maybe like
where are my imports? Where's my import
maybe 70,
profile,
80%, maybe up to 100%,
profile.
depending on the friend, and then to like a married partner or like a relationship, like 90 to 100%, depending on how much they share with their partner. The thing that makes it more confusing for somebody like me is that like for up to strangers, I'm probably up to like 85 to 90%. And then there's like this last like 5 to 10% maybe that people very close to me are at. But I'm very, very, very open with almost anybody in terms of stuff that I've shared publicly, in terms of things that I tell my stream
Not
or
bad.
Tell people about. So yeah, it's gonna so I think that makes it a lot harder, because somebody might assume that like the 90% they're seeing of me, they assume is like 20 to 40%, like what a normal person would show publicly. So like, oh my god. So like things like you're repressing memories of each other, like they think there's way, way, way more to dig into, but not really. I'm pretty open and genuine about like a lot of the part of my life. Yeah.
That's so interesting, because I feel like I'm the opposite, where everyone always feels like Brittany has no secrets. She tells everyone everything, and I'm like, I wonder if I'm self-sabotaging myself in some ways.
Okay,
Because
we'll
like
see
the other
how
day,
that
a friend of
runs.
mine literally said, "Oh, do you think this guy finds you less attractive because you talk to
And
Mr.
then
Girl?" And I'm like, "Why
I
would
need
that
the
matter?"
weak aura.
They're like, "Well, don't you
Yeah,
think like they probably saw you talking to him
I
and
don't
thought
know.
like, ew, like why would she talk to
Okay,
him?" And I was like,
I'm gonna try.
I didn't even process that that would be a thing. Does anyone ask
Copy
Destiny like,
import.
are they less attracted to Steven because he talks to certain people? Like that's such a weird thing, but of course they must
Try
be.
that.
Right? People
little-
look at you and don't even want.
It kind of sucks. That's just kind of like I think that's like a woman man thing. So like for instance, if you're a woman and you make a Tinder profile with you hanging out with a bunch of like really hot guys, like
What is that?
you're
Wait,
capable, like, that's a
what?
slut. I don't want to. Why would I talk to this girl? But if I have like Melina and shit on my Tinder profile, for some reason when women see men with really
That's
attractive
cool.
women, it signals like value a lot, and women are like, okay, well if that guy's got that girl, like something's going on there. There could still be feelings of jealousy involved, but it's like it's a way different dynamic. So that's not fair. It's not right. That's just like kind of how people judge people. But I mean, yeah, it sucks. But
I guess so.
Okay.
I do get a lot of questions. Like even you asked me, I think in one of our streams, like, "Oh, you're in your 30s and single. What's wrong?" And I'm like, I didn't grow up in a bubble where that was weird, like to be single. And still, even now, my parents don't care if I'm married or not. And so we just think about like making money and having career and being with family.
Sure.
So like obviously you want to be married and have kids, but like it's not that important. But I wondered, like, do you ever get asked that, like, about your relationships? I know you do with your open stuff.
yeah, of course, all
feel-
the time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's not really a man or woman thing. Is it just like when people are uncomfortable with your life choices, they blame it on that and go, "You must be doing it wrong because you're doing it different."
That can be the case sometimes, yeah. I think with that particular thing about like who do you talk to, who do you associate with, I think that women are judged more harshly for like romantic or social connections sometimes than men are. Once you've hit a certain age, everybody kind of expects you to be like married with kids.
Okay.
That's for men and women for sure.
Try that out.
Sometimes it can come down on women a lot earlier. Like people will pressure you when you're like in your mid-20s, like where are the children at?
Hey, we're
whereas
ready.
men can
Let's
get away
go.
with waiting a bit
Necrotic
longer
Week it is.
for whatever social biological reasons, but yeah.
I know people want you to signal that you're like mature and aged and stuff, which is why like in the modern world we just like buy houses, right? Like, it's like our version of saying like, "Hey, don't worry, my job's going well, so I'm not a complete mess," right?
A little bit, yeah. That's
what
one
I
way to
think
signal
signals
wealth,
to
yeah,
me.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, it signals like just stability, right? It signals like, "Hey, I'm not like if I had none of my people adulting stuff and I was single, then I'd be like red flag, red flag, red flag." But if you have everything figured out and then you just haven't found a partner you want to spend the rest of your life with, I mean, I feel like that's pretty reasonable.
Could be, yeah.
Cohabitation's insane.
I mean, yeah, it's a lot.
It's very hard.
Yeah,
It's very hard.
it is, yeah.
So like I don't know why people think it's
Health.
like, oh, so easy, just go find someone to live with for the rest of your life. I'm like, bros.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I think I'm too picky for this to be so casual.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that's
You
why I
know?
always say like I don't consider relationships real until people are living with each other, because until you're living with each other, you have no idea like what the fuck is up, you know? Because
Yeah.
things change a lot when you're forced to be now around somebody like every day when you don't want to be, you know? It changes a lot.
It does change a lot. Well, I've been very interested in just how you guys have all been handling like your part of the internet in regards to like these miscommunications and conversations.
Mhm.
At any
Shit.
point when you're having or being there or seeing it, do you ever in your head go, oh, I really can't talk to this person, they're actually a piece of shit?
Probably Hunter. I'm assuming 3200. Yeah.
Only once they're boring.
Probably be
Sometimes
Hunter
people are
being
pieces
my
of shit, but it's
PI
like,
target. Oh, he
hold on,
wants to
shit.
do
I feel
his
like I've
own
been really
time.
harsh on Max recently, so I'm trying not to. But like, there are ways that some people could view Max as being like a mean person or whatever. And I can
he beat
agree.
me
Like,
to
yeah,
it.
this seems like kind of mean or whatever. I think he would say the same about me, hopefully. So we're on even kill here. But that's interesting. Like, well, why? Why does he think like this, or why does he do that? Like, as long as there's like some interesting thing to mind there, or like maybe even more generous. If I had the opportunity to talk to like a triple murder, homicidal, serial rapist or whatever, like that would be interesting. That would be I would jump to have
Just
a
in
conversation
case.
I would
privately.
100% do that.
Yeah, it'd be super interesting. But if it's just like some dude that like steals on you, like, well, what the fuck? Like, why are you robbing gas stations? Well, I wanted, you know, and I have nothing else to do in life. It's like, okay, well, that sucks, but that's kind of boring.
So
So
there's
I don't
still
care anymore.
something
Yeah.
about Max that keeps you amused
Oh.
and entertained, and that makes sense to me. So that's really reasonable. Like, yeah, why else would he talk to anybody, right?
Yeah.
So does that? Do you think?
I think this is
this feels really shitty
I have
saying
a
it. So I don't,
21
Max hears this, like, God bless you. I don't
21
mean
two
it in a
chests that I
mean
need
way.
to improve
But
on.
like, do you think that because you find him
So this will give me,
interesting,
like,
he's
probably, like,
feeling
3
that
points.
objectification of Destiny,
4 or
Steven
5.
doesn't really want to
Max.
amusing like a shovel.
Cool.
Could that be a thing? I mean, it could be. It's hard to say.
Pretty
There could
sure
be
this
any
is just
number.
for the
It could be,
ready
but I don't
check,
think
but-
so. I think it's more just that he thinks that there's like a deeper level or onion layer to peel
Which is
back, and that I'm like
cool.
still that I just have this
But-
natural inclination to hide it from everybody. I think that's still the thing generally. Yeah.
You.
I should be able to have a
basic.
size group scale. Hey, that's what I'm looking for.
Basic bitch. What?
I'm asking you if you think you're basic.
Yeah, kind of. I would say, so this is how I always describe it. Like, I'm
Actually,
very
you can
simple
see
to
the comment.
understand, but I'm not very easy to understand, I think, is the thing. Like, I'm pretty straightforward with everything. I'll say everything, but people assume that I'm not. And then that's usually where the complicatedness arises from, is the incongruence between how people think I really am versus what I say that I am.
Ooh,
So people will have, like, a lot of
yo.
difficulty, like, associating with me. But I don't think it's because
What
I'm
am
a
I doing? What am
super
I doing? I'm
complicated
thinking of
person. I think
something.
I'm
Thinking
relatively
of
simple.
something.
In that I'll say what I mean what I say, and I'm like pretty open about it. This is what I want, this is what I don't want. But then people will kind of
No,
build
you know
up
what?
other
I don't
ideas
wanna
of me,
mouse
or they'll
over for
make
that.
assumptions about me, and then the further that incongruence grows, the more complicated and mysterious I become to them. But not because of who I am or what I've said, but just because they have like a totally different thing in their head of like who I am. You know? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Are we doing on time?
We're gonna sub at least 13 minutes. So.
Okay. In some ways you're basic, and in other ways this particular thing about you is also what like makes you different, because normal quote unquote common people do have like a lot of them that they don't show the world, or maybe they do, or maybe they are just like really, because I feel like I'm extremely simple and basic. I say it all the time. But truth is that based off of my dating criteria alone, you could argue that like if I was basic I'd be married. I don't think that's true either. Like, I think you can be basic and still like weird, or basic and an anomaly, or basic
Sure.
and have, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think like you have regular desires as like a human, but at the same time, the way you act towards people is also sort of normal in a way that I'm like,
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm normal. I think I'm pretty abnormal in a lot of ways. But yeah. I mean, I would agree with that probably.
I don't know. I've just learned to like radically accept everyone. So if you are telling me who you are, I just go, great, that's who he is. And then I try to find the mystery, and if there is one, great. If there isn't one, no biggie.
Mysteries.
I don't need there to be.
Mysteries are usually shown in actions. Somebody will say something, but then they'll do something that is inconsistent with what they've said, and then that's where the exploration begins, right? So, say for instance, common thing. Guy tells you like, oh yeah, you're cool to chat with, whatever. Like that's fine or whatever. Like I'm not jealous ever. And then anytime you're talking to another guy, he's either like messaging you a lot more, or you can tell that he goes different things here. Well, for one day, that would be cool. I like that. Yeah.
Bro, I can't get. You guys gotta get that. Sorry.
Yeah, but then there are people.
Jesus, bro.
Interesting. How worried?
Bro, that incapacitate fucked us hardcore.
I guess it depends on what the trajectory and how far we're projecting it, and how much it's inhibiting any further conversation we have.
Bro, you guys, bro. This is so chalk.
You ever feel like when you talk to people, when you go like this, when they what like some people have said, you stick to one conversation because though you talk to people for a living, you tend not to always add. You tend to really expect the other person to add, and it gets a little like, oh, he doesn't really want to talk to me. Feeling. I don't feel this way because I know you secretly love me, but like you know, other people. How do you feel about people thinking of you as somebody who almost feels indifferent to the conversation?
Jesus fuck, bro. That incapacitates
Yeah,
actually just
I'm
hardcore
not like
AIDS.
overly concerned generally with how people think I think of them. There's very few people in the world whose mental models of me I'm incredibly invested in. If I start to feel that there's a big divergence between their mental model and my mental model,
I'm actually kind of glad I didn't pop hypothesis. I feel like I would have actually like 100% died.
Like if it's like if I'm talking to like a random person, like, oh, does he don't care very much? Like I do. I'm here. I'm chat with you. Like I'm not gonna be super energized, but I care. I don't really care that much. But like so, like if we're a bit closer, if you're like, oh, like I feel like you are super ultra bored of me or whatever, then I might like ask like, oh, well, like what do I say or do that signals that, and then I'll try to like rectify that so that you're not getting like, so I would care a little bit more about your mental model.
Okay, so that thing, Obviously, the you you're using is not me. So when you're using that you towards the person.
Oh, I was using that you
what-
towards you, but yeah.
Well,
okay.
towards me. You know. So okay, fine. So, well, okay, but it sounds way too. Well, the question.
I think I've given you private messages like this before because something that I notice or that I know is it's very, very easy for me to get sucked into work and like disappear for like months. I'll do some but I'll do this now for 99% of people who message me, where are you guys? Like I'm good. If you think I hate you, that's fine. Don't mess with me again. But if it's somebody like, so for you, I think I've told you a few times, like, hey, sometimes I like totally just like disagree. I know it seems like I hate you or I'm struggling, but like I just, and it took me there to the point, but like I'm just super swamped and everything. So because I know that if I do give off this impression sometimes, and that will cause people to take all this risk, and I'll try to bring that back in line by explaining like what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah,
And I feel that, and I also have that anxiety of like, I'll message someone who's like, I like your work and I talk to you all the time, but then they don't talk to me. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, you could have just gone the short way. You had to go against the entire group for the dumb fuck. What an actual dumb fuck.
But I also
Alright, though.
it's weird because I just like so many people, but I like people.
He literally ran from here across the long ass way, bro. I don't understand that. You were right there. Just go to the fucking other side.
To get special attention. Why? What is that? In comparison to intimacy, other people are seeking from you. Like, I'm content with that intimacy. Maybe someone wants more, but I'm good with that. That makes me feel great. When other people give me, I want that thing from you, Steven, give it to me. I already feel like you're giving it to me.
I mean, it's either it's gonna happen or not based on the nebulous term. And I hate to say this so much.
Bro, what is happening?
Like I'm either
We're hitting.
a lot, and it's
People
fun,
are
or
just
it's
sitting.
not,
Bro,
just kind
it's
of
probably
is
gonna be a
what it
shot
is.
cast 24 or 22.
But it's, you can't really force it.
Bro, like, what is this?
There's probably,
Like,
there's
we're just
probably,
doing
like, 50 people right now
unnecessary
that are
shit. It's such a simple poll. It's not
I
complex.
guess all my new YouTube friends are kind of.
Yep, rip ass key, bro. 12
right
already,
now,
5 down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Why? Okay, one last question, and then I know you really have to go, but feel free to cut me off if you have to. Okay, the one last question I've really been having though is like sometimes.
It's so AIDS.
Do you ever do anything for your own
Like,
safety?
it's just.
Like, do you ever
We have a
deny
monk
access for your own safety?
and a warlock. No, we don't.
No,
we
and
didn't have a
it's either
warlock.
gonna
We had a
sound really
hunter.
tippy or
I think a
just
warlock
really
might have been better for
stupid.
that.
It's very, very, very hard to like hurt me. I don't take very many people's like opinions of me very seriously. If they diverge too much from how I view myself, I just tend to not believe them or discredit them. Like if somebody says like, "Oh, I think you're actually an evil, fucking horrible," it's like, I know I'm not an evil, horrible person. Like, I don't really care. And then it's really hard to like. Yeah, it sounds really tippy, but it's
Why am
really
I
hard to like say or do something that's like really gonna fuck with me. Like, there's very, very, very few people in the world that would have that leverage. Yeah. I'd probably heard if like Melina was like, Steven, like I'm done with you, I'm gonna divorce you. It's like, oh fuck me, Jesus, that sucks. But like the amount
Good.
of
Okay.
yeah,
That's
there's
good. You feel that way.
yeah, there's very, 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 very few people that like have that sort of like leverage to like actually, yeah. For most people, it's just it's just not how I do things. I guess I don't know, or it's hard to imagine what somebody could do to like really make me upset. I guess
That sucks. It's
I
alright.
don't know if that makes any sense.
I could tell it was kind of chalked off the rip. I mean, that shit was
I'm
definitely
just thinking about.
wild that we had. I mean, I don't think we had a good comp, to be fair. We had 2 druids, hunter, and a fucking monk. The monk would have been the hard carry
Oh,
there.
Alpha here, but go
But
ahead.
this boomkin was fucking actually just not. He was it was his key though. You could tell he was trying to get it carried basically. I think the second he brought on the monk, it was chalk. No offense to him, but if you're gonna get 2 DPS to fucking hard carry you, it better be fucking. It better be a warlock and a hunter.
Yeah, like I said, it's just
can't be
very, very,
using,
very hard
like,
to like do
monk.
something with like
You need the
genuine
warlock
hurting.
for
So
some
typically,
stuns,
I'm lucky in
for
that
the
I can
extra
always sit
AoE,
back and
ooh.
just kind of like laugh at the absurdity of everything.
Long shot.
I guess another thing that helps is that like this is gonna sound very like triggering myself off, but I think I'm generally like a pretty good person. So anytime like huge drama pops up, assuming I have my record straight, I'm not really going to be the one that looks bad.
Love of
I
my
think it's happened
life.
time and time again. The Bob 7 drama, the Ari
Mi
and Yumi drama,
amor.
the Denim Ziman drama, like anything. Like I think I'm generally conducting myself pretty well. Like the
He's going
worst thing
for
you're
it.
ever going to be able to
He's
say
going
about
for
me is
it.
that, like maybe you like let a person on or something, I guess.
Arya's
even though,
going
like,
for the 20,
generally I'm pretty
22
firm things.
necrotic wake.
But I've never like I don't rape people.
We chalked
I don't
ours
backstab
right on the
people.
rip.
I pay people well. Yeah. So as long as
No,
I'm.
I don't mean in terms of your reputation. In terms of your psychology.
Well, no,
Like,
but I mean, like,
can't-
I think that plays a part into it. Like, I feel like I conduct myself like at a pretty high standard compared to 99% of people. I do really well in terms of how I associate with people and how I treat people. So when things come up, like, I don't really usually have much to feel bad about. If I was the kind of person that was like ripping people off or like fucking people over, I might feel differently about that, because now it's like, fuck, if this person like reveals this thing about me that I like, you know, I didn't pay this dude, or like I backstabbed this guy, or I was like talking shit about this dude, fuck, now I feel really bad. Like maybe I would be more worried about people being able to hurt me because I'd have things that I'm hiding or things that I'm kind of ashamed or embarrassed about. But for the most part, I don't really feel that way.
Bubba's
Okay,
tired.
that's interesting. I think that's what actually made me so interested in your work, because I came in around the scandal, and when I was coming in, I was like, okay, so I'm watching. I know Dead's who he is, but I'm watching him really
I'm not
for the
even
first
gonna
time,
play.
and I was so
be a
impressed
waste of
with
a
how you
click.
handled her, and then I was just also a little like put off too. 'cause part of
22
me is
the
like,
other side
who's
is
this person
definitely
that allows these
doable.
people into his life? And then I was like, oh, it's a person who's like not taking on the
22
burden
halls
of their
already
energy, unlike me.
Mhm.
Like honestly doesn't have that skill. Like I just
22
take it
plague.
on myself to some extent. Maybe it's the borderline,
Mhm.
but like it's so loud. Like the energy is
I have
so
two
loud that, like,
more
I can't deal with it.
20s.
Like
Yeah,
I don't
One of
have
which I'm
patience.
not really
That's
intending
totally
to get done
fair,
this
and I think
week.
that's super normal. That was one of the huge. I think I might have even mentioned this to you before on stream. One of the biggest problems with my relationship with Melina early on was, I think it was like after like 6 to 12 months. She was like, "Is it always like this? Like, is your life actually just
Oh, wow.
the same all the time?" And I'm like, yeah,
Why
I mean,
does
kinda
it do
is.
that?
And, but then I
the,
noticed,
like,
especially through her, because I didn't really
that
think of this
border.
as much myself.
Is it
so
just-
I just like to lay back. And
that's
watch
a
the
very
videos. I think it's all
weird-
very entertaining, but it takes a very different control on her, which is why I have to be a little bit more careful how I associate with some people, because it will destroy her mentally to go through so many wild, insane things over and over again. Whereas for me, it's very easy for me to just like, all right, well, chapter 3 over, go to the next shit. Like, I was, yeah.
Yeah. I wish I had that skill, to be honest. Like I just don't have it, and so a part of me wonders if you can learn it or if you think you're born with it.
There's a lot of things that go into that. So if I had to guess, this is my last statement. If I had to guess,
I don't understand what's going on with this.
I'm gonna go very Evo psych here. Okay, if you have like a community full of people that are all worried about what the other person thinks, I think it keeps that community running.
What is
Right?
that?
Like, John, you didn't get any fucking fish today. We all think you're a lazy fuck. Okay, and John's like,
Target
shit,
bracket
I can fucking work. That's
indicator.
not cool. If you had a society of those types of people
Oh, okay,
that all
so I see what it
will
is.
function the same way that I did, John wouldn't give a fuck if he didn't get any fish, because he doesn't care. He doesn't want to get fish. He
I like
wants to
that.
draw or play video games or climb trees all day. And then that society would probably
Maybe
fall
not.
apart.
I don't know.
Because you'd probably need some level. I think that humans in general are very much like whatever they think the mental model of everybody else is around them, it heavily influences the way that they view themselves. And I think that's a very normal thing for a lot of people. I very much do not vibe with that at all. I can have like a million people
probably
screaming that I'm a
depends.
certain thing, and as long as I don't feel like
Actually,
that, I don't really care, it doesn't bother me. I think that probably influences how easily I'm able to disconnect from either other people or like crazy situations. I think that crazy situations can leave a lot of people feeling like in flux with who they are. They're like, well, fuck, like, I don't know if, like, did I fuck up, or am I a horrible person, you know, just because of this or that about me, like, holy shit, I don't know. But for me, I don't really care, so it's easy for me to just, like, pack up, I'm like, okay, I know who I am, I know what I do, like, if I did fuck up, I can think about it, I'll reflect, I'll introspect, I'll figure out, like, okay, you know, maybe I can change this better, but I'm not gonna let other people's significantly different mental models of me, like, ruin my mental model of myself, which I think is a little bit unique, probably, yeah.
Okay, for my last statement.
Yep, go for it.
This is why I think women are attracted to you, because your statements make me feel very safe, and I've been really thinking about this. See, that makes me feel safe. Steven's not going to crumble under the pressure. He's actually going to be pretty stable, and I'm going to be able to look at him and be like, "Are you stable?" And he's going to be like, "Yes." I'm like, "Sweet."
I feel like
so
I
now I
just
don't have to double question you. I don't question if
altered.
you like me as a friend. I don't question if we're in a fight or anything. I just take you for who you are, and it makes me feel really safe because you are who you are.
Yeah, as long as I'm not playing League of Legends, everything's good to go.
Perfect. Okay, that's really interesting. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about. Have a great day, though.
Yep.
Thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, no problem. I'll message you when I finish this thing if you're still spooning or whatever, okay?
right. Okay. Bye.
Well, this is a great party already. Is a 22.
Rift. Fuck.
Okay, that looks like everybody. All right, I'll make a roll for all the creators, and we'll.
Aliens. So yeah, who joined it? Okay.
Alrighty, hello, hello.
Hi.
Hey guys,
Howdy, howdy.
how is it going?
It'll be going better when I can stop booming here in a sec, but
Pretty good.
it's already a good start to the day because my whole computer didn't crash when I turned on my camera. So,
Eli, I haven't heard your mic yet. Can I just sound check it quickly?
Testing 1 2 1 2.
Perfect. It's great.
Yay.
Comrade Cam, can I just check your mic too?
Testing 1 2.
Perfect. I heard hands. Destiny, I'm assuming your mic is good.
Probably a warlock.
Based on that blank stare, I'm gonna assume that Steven, you're good.
Yeah, if you're gonna assume the mic is good, you asked me to talk. Why? Because clearly you're not making the assumption if you're looking for a verbal response. So why not just say mic test?
Okay, good.
Okay,
I'm
there you
glad we're
go.
starting out on such heat. It's a really good start.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so just so everyone knows, we're live now. So this is my first time hosting and moderating a panel. So we'll see how that goes. How I'm gonna do this. So I'm gonna start by everyone doing their brief introductions. Just plug yourself. Tell the audience your name, where they can find you, all that good stuff. We'll start with Comrade Cam, and then we'll kind of go Comrade Cam, Steven, Hans, Monty.
Why did I do that?
Cam?
Hi guys, my name is Cam. I'm currently just on TikTok, slowly getting into Twitch and other platforms. I generally do leftist content, mainly focused on feminism. The reason for that is because I saw a lot of leftist creators talking about ideology when it comes to politics, not a lot of men or leftist men talking about feminism and issues that are revolving around gender equality. So I decided to focus on that, and yeah, I do lives every now and then and post videos. That's about it.
Okay, well,
Destiny?
I don't know why it's on the.
Hi, I am Destiny. I do center-left content politically, and I play video games. And sometimes I hate women, but not tonight. Tonight is all about. Oh no, we're all men actually. Tonight is definitely about hating women. So yeah.
Okay. Hans?
Hi, I'm Hans. Hans Herkier. I'm a slightly leftier than center than Steven, Twitch guy. I mostly just play a lot of games now. I'm grinding through TFT, and I'm just excited to talk about dating and relationships. I'm really excited.
Eli?
Hello, my name is Nadi Monty. Much like Cam and I actually have a lot in common. Apparently, Cam, some people in my chat already know of you and think you're base as fuck, so that's great. I am also from TikTok. I'm also a leftist. I'm also an intersectional feminist. I talk a lot about women's rights and feminist issues on my platform. That seems to be the big thing that I talk about. Open to a lot of far lefty ideas. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, let me find you. Are you the same name?
Yeah, same thing everywhere.
Okay.
Awesome. And Meat.
what's up, y'all? Professor Me on YouTube. I've made the horrible marketing mistake of just deciding to be Professor_Meat on Twitch. I have no
Why both top left and bottom right have very deep voices. Why? In fries. Oh man.
bad arguments, something like that. And I think it's fun to call people out for it when I can, and to have fun little political, philosophical conversations when I'm capable of pretending I'm qualified.
Awesome. Okay, so some details to understand about the panel. So this is my first time hosting a panel. I'm working with myself and a couple of other small streamers to make basically
she misspoke.
kind of intermedia panels. So we've got some TikTok representation, which is super nice. Thank you, Cam and Eli, and some Twitch. In the future, I'm also going to try to have panels that integrate Twitch streamers, YouTube, and TikTok, as long as banning allows all of those members to be a part of it.
Happy?
So that's kind of the goal, is to kind of hear from different mediums. And
I know.
a couple of rules. So I'm going to moderate. I'm pretty hands-off for the most part with moderating. Number one rule is going to be concision. Say what you want to say quickly. I will cut you off, and I will be pretty ruthless in it if you're monologuing for too long. Just make one point and let people respond. I'll try to be nice. I'll try to be like, hey, let's wrap it up. 2 sentences. If you go on for too long, I'll just move on from you. If you continue to go on, I will mute you and then move on from you. So concision is going to be our number one rule. Ideally, we don't want to do too much yelling over top of each other. That's usually helped with concision. Number 2, I want people to be as not bad faith as possible. So I'm not saying you have to be good faith. You don't have to be nice. But try not to be straw manning. Try not to actively misunderstand.
He's trying to push this week. Jesus.
One another's positions and engage with what people actually say.
Last fucking DOS he has was an 18. His best for the best is for an 18, and he's trying to do a 22. Okay, let's run it.
Don't break TOS, obviously.
You have a really aggressive something on your mic. When you lean away and talk a little bit like that, everything you're saying gets cut off. This is a heads up.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thanks. And so you guys heard all those rules though, 1 and 2?
Yep.
Concision? Yep. Hey, no bad faith. Other than that, I think I'll kind of let
Hopefully
you guys go.
fucking pops off,
We've got
bro.
basically
Let's go.
one dominant question. There's kind of 2 questions that are all related to one another. Hold them up now. So, question is, how are men failing in relationships? What are some unfair societal expectations for men when it comes to dating, and how do they navigate this? Plus, what are some fair criticisms and societal expectations for men, and how can they be better? So this is all about men dating in modern world. Where are they struggling? What is valid? Where are they failing? What's not valid? And how can they improve? We'll kind of start with an opening statement. Try to be decently brief, like 1 minute, 2 minutes max. I'll maybe start with Meat first.
Yeah, it's hard to almost even have an opening statement because a lot of this stuff gets so complicated. I guess, like, in the sense that it might be helpful for kicking it off, I guess, I'll just say, the way I think about, like, unfair and fair expectations are in the sense of what we might be able to say we can reasonably expect. Look at it through that lens, I guess. It's almost hard to.
I just pop a quote out for it.
But maybe
I don't know how
that is almost
fucking
brief
dumb
enough.
some people
I
will
guess
be.
I just think there's a lot of
5,
interesting things that get
4,
that axis, that exact
2,
distinction
1.
between what is like a fair and unfair expectation. I guess is where a lot of the problems come into, where like between men and women in dating spheres, and people start to become resentful of each other.
Awesome. Okay. I'll go up to Hans next.
So basic things here. A lot of men struggle with fulfilling, I'd say, social benchmarks of success that have been for a long time used to attract women, whether it's say having a successful career, a job, money, business, something so much older. So I can see a lot of younger men being frustrated because they've been either denied or unsuccessful on those, and makes it hard for them to attract another person. But I think it's really about pushback against the concept of finding valuable relationships and the idea like,
Oh, that was a slam.
Is it humor? Is it money? Is it interesting conversation? Is it activities you can do with money? And so I think you have to understand that there are struggles that are in terms of being successful, but also that you have to do something to be a good partner, being with relationships.
Destiny?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, there's like 27 different levels that we can analyze this on, but I think, like, broadly speaking, like, socially, we could kind of, like, moved a lot of the gender roles around in terms of...
That is not the DR guy.
In college and the workplace, and men are expected to be more emotional.
That is
and I think that
the
kind of this mix-up of where we
invisible guy.
where we are now, where we're headed. There's a lot of confusion about where people are. Men don't know like, are we supposed to consider this to be housewives now? Women don't know like, can I date
Bro,
down
what?
socioeconomically?
Move faster with the
women are like, do I
non-mount,
still
Mr.
value a man
Man,
for his
Mr.
success?
Guy.
Men are like, do I still value women just for their looks? Like, there's kind of a lot of confusion there socially about everything that's going on.
Yeah,
Right,
was
sorting
the
through the mess
move
of social
running on a
media.
mount. God, should be a fun time. Should be a great
basically
time.
the same things I would say. There is certain social expectations from men that are put by patriarchal norms that have been in place for decades over decades, and a lot of men are either still being indoctrinated into following these blindly, or being not necessarily bullied, but they're not guided into how to better themselves. That's causing a lot of troubles because a lot of men are not enough for themselves, let alone for a relationship.
Awesome. Eli.
Yeah, so I do think that there's probably going to be some things that men might struggle with in relationships. I feel like a lot of it possibly might have to deal with it might have to come down to maturity type things. It also is I guess, weird expectations or unfair expectations when going into a relationship of what both people within a relationship should do, what both people should provide, etc., etc. I think one of the ways in which men might fail or struggle, or one of the things that really makes it hard for men within dating, is probably the red pill community. I think the red pill community does pose a bit of a problem for men because a lot of men don't exactly understand socialization. Will fall down the pipeline of the red pill community and their propaganda and advertising, and as a result may trip up in relationships.
No, I didn't mean to do that to you, bud.
Awesome. So I'm going to open the floor. Does anybody have a direct response, or do you want me to comment on that question?
Yeah, for Mate in particular, so I completely agree with you that a lot of these descriptions of the rest of the media are extremely shitty, but I feel like we have to provide positive things instead.
Yeah.
For men, so what would you recommend for men in that? There's a lot of things that that red pill stuff, when you actually confident trying to be successful, that if they have a lot of say women putting stuff in there, messed in, but there's still positive aspects of bettering yourself. What would you put there instead?
So I 100% agree. I think one of the best ways in which you counter the really toxic red pill community is by going through within our own content and our own platforms and maybe dissecting some of the points that they that they make in their videos and their podcasts that may be a bit harmful, explaining why it's harmful, explaining
my graphics are
this
fucking
is the exact opposite of what you want
extremely
to
set down.
if you want to have any sort of relationship, not even just with women, but with people in general. Because there's some things that I've heard come out of these people's mouths where it's like this is something that should, if anything, trigger some dudes too, or get some dudes riled up and angry, or what have you. I think just countering it with our own sort of wholesome content, the best kind of dating advice there is, which is be yourself, be open-minded, listen to him or her when they're talking, not just listening to try to listen to respond and toot your own horn. You know what I mean?
You should leave that on me for a bit while I catch up. I got some fucking errands to run on this thing.
Socialize. I think socialization, when you just, when you don't overthink it, is a pretty easy thing to do. Self-reflection is another good one. Teaching people, teaching men in particular, how to self-reflect, why we should self-reflect, why self-reflecting is important. And again, not even with just this is where we get into the intersectionality part of it. Not even just
wrap it up in the next 2 sentences.
Yeah, but also
Jesus
that will help
bro.
you with the socializing in general.
I think that I think that one of the issues when people on the left are for some reason they're target something
spread love.
When you're unwilling to engage with the that it creates a market for something that you communicate horrible things to say. I think the red pill community and the outright community, whatever
Run.
dating queens we talk about, or P-way stuff. I think
We are probably gonna wipe.
most likely.
You know what? I believe in this. I believe in like no mana healing. That's what I believe in.
Watch your
Women tend to be attracted to older men that make more money than them, or can provide some level of financial security. Feels like when less people like look at stuff like this, they'll really like scream about you.
100% not killing this thing.
Unfair gender roles.
Just pop this on you so you don't die. Then you try and down DPS this thing. It's probably really rough. But, you know what?
I think on the left,
There's no way. Wow, they actually got it.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot because I feel like a lot of something that I would say is a fair criticism of guys in this space is that like when you look at a lot of criticism, a lot of the time when people bring up things like that, the response is exactly what you talked about.
You're such a dumb fuck! You're a fucking dumb fuck!
For women to like value those things. Like,
you're a certified idiot!
I think that's the distinction between fair and unfair. It's just like, you know, we talked about. I think a few of the opening statements sort of got into like how these things.
Well, I hope you guys can deal with some shit while I'm boom as fuck.
To some extent, we
just don't
shouldn't
die.
necessarily expect to just be able to like talk about and for these roles to shift on their own. To some extent, I think like we need to have space for these roles to be like.
There's one casting.
I guess like you're saying like
very cool. I got I'm chill with it.
Valuable or valid in the
literally
present
like
day, and I feel like there's a lot of
runs on the edge of me.
One of the criticisms
I just try to heal him. Like fucking, you have 1 second left, motherfucker. Can't you just chill?
It's weird. Just the right and the left will do this in their weird ways.
Like the dumb fuck you are.
Indirectly, and the like MGTOW groups who do it directly is we'll put all the blame on women for just having expectations.
Actually,
that are
I'm gonna ghetto heal.
Some societal pressure that we're brainwashing, we're being brainwashed and we're growing up in. And I, you know, some of that's probably fair, but I think we probably heard it.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like on the right, like people will blame women for everything, but then on the left, people are being slain. I feel like I can step into a left area and I can say something like, you know what, women value men and they get and that's okay. You know, having some levels of belief life is good. They're expected to bear children and take care of kids. Like, yeah, I think that's a totally fine expectation. I think everybody, yeah, for absolutely sure. But if I were to say something, you know what, a lot of men are women that are like
back up
and look hot and can have kids and stuff. I feel like you're like, this is horrible, this is unfair, that's the patriarchy, you should blah blah blah. Okay, well hold on, like how can one gender have like what is more or less in line with the things that they expect to want and have wanted for a long time, but then when you talk about the other side, people get like really nasty, depending on which community you're talking to.
Are we comparing, just to clarify, are we comparing in one hand women who did not have even the right to work up until like, I don't know, fucking 50s, I guess, and then on the other hand, men who would go for people who are significantly younger than them because they don't have the fucking social understandings or the skills to actually work with their own age? Are we comparing the two?
Yeah.
So,
that's a loaded question because that's not really.
You guys know what's happening right now.
Because women do have the right to work today, and there's a reason why men can go after younger women, but younger women or younger men don't go after. You have to be able to engage with these things rather than just like state them and go, "That's crazy."
Bit rough,
you
guys.
have to be able to engage with the reasons why it happens, right?
But then that's, you get into things like, okay, so we have to ask ourselves when we, if we really want to like explore these topics and societal norms, or things that we say are societal norms. What are the
okay, boys, let's go. Let's do the thing.
For, you know, men looking for younger women? What is the reason for women looking for older men that are financially stable? Because I would say, in many cases, if a woman is looking for a man that is older and makes money, would it be something along the lines of simply a security that she might not find within younger men? Maybe just engaging with your example, your question. I would say we would need to look at, well, once we ask ourselves those questions, then we start to
relax.
The nitty-gritty of the conversation of like, what's going on that causes men to do this thing and then women to do that thing.
kind of concerned for these
and that
rages.
opens up the conversation
But
entirely.
it's just me.
A lot of other
Speaking.
But I think if anything, those would come down to patriarchy and things that have been.
If anything,
norms
so
built up in
I
society for a
don't
while.
know if
Yeah,
these
we can't
rages
talk about
do
norms,
more
but like,
damage
if something has existed for all of
than
human history, it's
the
probably
Urs
like
heal.
reasons why these things exist. So if we're going to speak in contrast to them, we have to be aware of those like really strong forces that are moving in a certain direction that we're going to be working towards. So like for instance, you say, well, women are looking for older men because it's been
AOE incoming.
probably want men that are more mature. A lot of guys think it's cool, like, oh, like how mature they is, right? That's like the thing.
Oh, okay, we're not doing it here.
So, again, like I said, there's a reason why younger women.
Okay.
But
Okay. That seemed like there's no way that was all of it, right?
AOE incoming.
And it's not just like age though, because I feel like a lot of age correlates a lot of things that like women supposedly want, whether it's like stability, whether it's financial security. There are things that like being older tend to correlate with. So like if there's like a younger successful man in his 20s who has that sort of stuff, it's probably not facing the same stuff that a lot of like other stuff might not. So
Why do you think that men don't care about maturity?
That's why we were starting all that ish. Jesus. Yeah, we're gonna wipe it. Just wipe it. There's no way we're gonna recover off that and coming back.
Agree, or maybe it's because like I'm just different from a lot of other men in the sense that like.
Let's say we got one more before we chalk it.
I have been one that's typically gone after like, or tried to go after like older women, and I do actually from dating women.
Yeah, the cooldowns.
Yeah, how old are you, and then what's the age gap like women? You have
I mean, I'm assuming you'd want to
I'm
use like.
26, but like I would not be afraid to talk to someone who's potentially 10 years older. Like I wouldn't like if she's attractive and he's mesh, like I wouldn't care. Like now in my current and permanent relationship, she and I are very close. Probably like maybe just a few months apart, or maybe like half a year apart in terms of age. With me being. But I mean, I think no offense to Destiny, but I think what you brought up with, I think you brought up a little bit of like some stereotypes there. I think these are sort of like harmful stereotypes that, or maybe I shouldn't say harmful, but there's not like there's not really the best way in which, or the best lens I think to view this through, because there are a lot of men out there that do go after older women or women more along their age, and there are a lot of women out there who look at older men and go, that's gross, that this guy would be interested in me, or that I would be interested in him, or whatever, like I think that's sort of an old norm that like is starting to be smashed, a mold that's being broken.
Yeah, I would say no. There's not. There's not really a ton of women that are going after younger men. There's not really a ton of men that are going after older women. Like there is a reason why when you talk to men, like, are you really worried about turning like 30 or 35? Generally, no. This isn't most things that men care about. Usually, hopefully, if they're doing well in their careers, they're getting in their careers in terms of like the stability and the areas of success.
Just do them all in Arden. I think that's a better spot.
In their life, they're usually like hitting this stride in their 30s. Hopefully, like for men, like as life gets into their 30s, things are generally going pretty well. For women, there's a lot of pressure.
Oh no, buddy, no, we're gonna die.
You can almost feel like, fuck, like I fucked
Find
up.
shelter.
Not working well in my life.
That's gonna hit me too.
Society tends to value women more.
Bro.
And then other women for things like youthfulness and ability to have kids and all this. It's that's starting to like lose that piece or past the time you get 30.
I mean, bro, I think you have the highest death counter right now, Warrior. To be completely frank, but.
Very interesting, right? I don't want to just date somebody who's 20 that can have kids. I think that's boring personally. I like people that are more mature. I agree with you there, but you have to be able to speak to what most people are feeling, and you can't just say that like, oh well, these are just stereotypes. Well, these are stereotypes that exist for reasons and have for like not hundreds of thousands, 200,000 years is how long we've existed, I guess, for thousands and thousands of years.
I mean,
yeah, it's like you need to be careful not to stigmatize things that are inevitable, right? Like that's where you're going to run into problems with your ability to communicate, like based on some shared descriptive reality.
I mean, again, I would just ask,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not entirely sure that it is inevitable though, but like we're starting to see like clashing
back-to-back fails of simple
like,
mechanics.
a woman won't date down in terms of income, right?
I mean,
But, like,
the warrior definitely
more degrees
fucking
and,
died
earn
like
more in the
more than he
workplace, like, we're
needed
working on that
to
pay
be
gap, right?
completely frank.
If it's like 1 in 5
But he was
women
popping
date a
off.
man
He
who
was
makes
like
less
still
than money
keeping
than
up
them,
with the hunter.
and men
So
aren't making like say as much comparatively as they used to.
it's
then we'll start
sad
having some
because
societal
I don't think
tension
the
in
warrior
regards, like,
should keep
because
up
like
with
the dating
them.
pool inevitably shrinks in regards to how we handle that. So either we have to get say more women in line with dating men who make less than them, which I think is totally fine and great. We have to get to that point, make women more comfortable doing that, or like we'd have to like settle for like the existing say like gender
Looking
pay gap
bleak
stuff, which is
right
pretty
now.
shitty. I don't think anyone
Looking
really
bleak.
wants to do that if they're interested in societal progress. So like where do you go from that? Because like we don't want to keep women down, but we also want to like
A lot of
make
chalks.
women more accepting.
Too many
like, the men
chalks.
who aren't, like giga chat earners.
Cody
right?
on?
Well, to be honest, I see. I feel like
Oh, he's doing
a
theater.
lot of these things on a societal level are more like operating as heuristics that we use in dating. Like, for example, and I think the science bears out on this if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the studies to pull up or anything, but like women, maybe this sounds naive of me almost, but women, I don't really think care so much about money specifically.
Fridays and Saturdays off.
A lot of the times, like when the guy rolls up in a great car, don't get me wrong, a lot of women like a great car, but I think even if they don't realize it, a lot of the reason why women might like money, they might like a great car is because they like what it indicates about the man. And while I think that you bring up a great point, like I do think that there will be changes, there are going to be difficulties in how we handle these things. It's the underlying there's an inevitable underlying truth that is still to some extent staying to change there. I just think that like the like heuristic analyses, the judgment.
I feel like 22s is like
and when they're thinking about like
I
money
think
as a
20s have had
heuristic,
easier
but there's still
times
some
getting into
underlying
22s.
like
22s I feel like
maturity,
people
some
are
things
are
like
I
that
feel
that
like
are still,
people
like,
are
looking for underneath the
20
money, right? Like
That underlying thing is
key
like stability.
people,
Like, can you
meaning
take
like
care
they've
of
only
them,
done
right?
20s,
Like,
but like
we
they.
keep going back to
I
maturity.
think in a
Like, a
20
really
you
mature
can
guy that
survive.
doesn't have a
You
job
genuinely
and
can
lives with his
survive
parents
getting
is
hit
not
by
gonna
some
make it as
stuff.
far as an immature guy that,
Especially if you like
can provide, like,
sacrifice
a stable house and
versatility,
stability.
but like there's no fucking
I do
shot
agree
at
that, like,
22
people don't care
or
about the
23 or
money,
24.
but it is a proxy for
I
stability.
mean, you're basically getting one shot. If not
I
one
would
shot,
also
then you're getting one shot
absolutely say
plus
that, like, an unstable
DPS.
man with a stable income like does pretty well. It's
Ooh, Gambit.
Wait,
Like I would just say like because
Well,
I've heard like horror stories about like you hear these all the time about where like men who are
Probably won't, but
well on
worth a
in their
shot.
careers but they're shitty personality wise and they live lives being alone because they're shitty people. So like I guess Destiny I would have to push back and ask like where are you getting this data or this info from, or what causes you to have this view of men tend to be like this, women tend to be like this? I would need like some sort of like data or statistic, what have you, because from my lens, from my own personal dating experience, like it's been everything but that. Like I've been the broke guy. I've been the guy that's had like the broke down hoopty car, but still is able to be very successful with my relationships with women. Like at the start of my relationship, or at the start of my relationship, I was predominantly the house husband. Like there's been many times in my life where my partner has pulled more money or more weight than me, and in many cases, or at least in many cases with my dating life, this has not been a deterrent or has made me any less successful, because I think times are changing more, and because of the fact that I am a more mature person, or present myself to be a more mature person relationship wise, to where she doesn't even care. It doesn't really affect me.
Monty,
I mean,
I just put it in the chat, but like if you're looking for like the evidence stuff, so 22. Okay. There was a study from 2017. Like 22% of women said they wouldn't date down. Only 4% of men said that. 69% of women said they'd be uncomfortable footing all the bills, compared with 46% of men. So it's not like it's every man or every woman. The idea is that there are general trends that we absolutely can acknowledge, and that's where a lot of like these stereotypes come from. And if we're trying to dismantle these stereotypes, we still have to like contend with the real world existing, and like end these like gaps that I would say are relatively like steep. Like again, 4% of men versus 22% of women. That's it's almost a fifth of the population in terms of like their differences in responses like to dating. So we have to like acknowledge that, even if like you personally like have done like relatively well at like say like broker times of your life, because like I'm sure that because there's still 78% of women who would date you if they make more money than you, but like there's still more women that wouldn't than compared to man who wouldn't date a woman.
Yeah, and then there's
like,
we've also got there's like a study here that shows
then,
that like people are preferring like men that have average higher income, men that are more likely to be employed, I mean, like the data is, we don't need to do data. I feel like data is boring. You can look at this study. You can go to page 2 where they graph out across 4 different dating markets, like what the desirability rank is of like men versus women. You see that women, like, whoop, it just slides off. It starts at a high, it says 20, and it gets lower and lower and lower. Whereas for men, it starts off at its lowest at 20, and then at around 35, 40, 50, like it starts like, you can see this like socially when you look culturally, like, well, who gets matched with who in movies that's like desirable to people. You know, you see like very old male actors getting young, matched with very young female actors. I mean, like, this is ubiquitous throughout society. I don't want to say it's self-evident, because that's obviously, if we disagree on things, for both of us to say it's self-evident, it's silly. But like, you talk about, for instance, like hearing horror stories of like, you know, older men that end up being shitty in relationships and stuff. That's true, but why do those horror stories exist? It's because women are still willing to give them a chance. You don't hear very many horror stories of younger men dating older women, because a lot of guys won't even do it. And then yeah, even like what Hans said earlier, like the younger men. What?
Or maybe it's just that it's less likely to, you know, fall apart when you just have like when you have two people that are on the same page, like maturity wise and like, you know, just relationship wise. Like, and also someone dropped a study from like 2017, and someone in my chat brought something that should be considered. That's 2017. We're 5 years ahead, and a lot can change in 5 years. And I think a lot has changed in 5 years. I would argue that a lot has changed in 2 years even.
Okay, I'll be right back. Boy. Come on, I gotta get at least one. I did get one. I got my Gambit 22 done today, so not like for naught. I gotta get at least one more down. Can't wait to start doing these 25s, 25, 3100. Good luck, brother. Oh, already got 22 missed, and they have a healer. Damn, bro. A lot of groups happening right now, which is why I listen to this on the side.
Yeah, but now, like the current.
I wanna drop in there. I wanna drop in there. I'm sorry. I wanna drop in there and ask a question because we are talking about like these things that we see as like, okay, this is how it works. This is how it works, and we are talking about studies and everything, and we are talking specifically about women's preferences right now. And let's forget about the victim blaming attitude with the pick a better man. Then you're giving them a chance, and that is why this is happening to you. Let's forget about that for a second. Why do we think that women are going for men who can provide them stability, and men are going for women who are younger than them, or based on their looks, or more immature, I suppose? Because we are looking at this from a like, again, Destiny said in the beginning, I'm going to be a leftist here and say patriarchy all over, because those are things that are caused by patriarchy. Once again, with the men being the ones that are always like the breadwinners, and women being the ones, the nurturing and stay at home, whatever's. You're looking at this from perspective of a very dogmatic way, that you think that men's responsibility in general is to earn more. They don't need to be mature, and you are assuming that women are just going to be fine with that, when we see all around the fucking social media, even in movies, that those things cause extremely toxic relationships.
So something that I think we need to be really careful of when we analyze social order or social structures, like things like patriarchy, is I feel like for a lot of left-leaning people, they have a backwards analysis where they assume that we have a certain system of people, and then somebody came and they instantiated patriarchy and then tried to ramrod all of society through that, rather than what's probably more likely is through certain social organizations, these other systems tend to emerge, where patriarchy is one of those things. So patriarchy tends to emerge in almost every society in recorded human history for the past 10,000 years. Now, that's not to say that patriarchy is good or that women should be oppressed. I like that women can vote. I like women that have jobs. I think that stuff is really cool. But we have to acknowledge that these things are probably emerging over and over and over and over again for probably underlying reasons that we need to address. And again, we can
maybe again and again, we had a lot of propaganda again in movies, in shows, in politics, in music, and everything that is affecting society, and everything that is indoctrinating us with certain through maintaining certain systems of power, instead of it being a natural occurrence. Because in hunter-gatherer societies, and what is usually called in sociology, I don't know if you like to hear this, but in primitive communist societies, there were no gender roles with how people were operating. Now, we've been taught throughout years that there were, but we have strong archaeological and anthropological data today shows us that women were also hunters and men were also gatherers. So this wasn't the case until, like you said, this past 10,000 years in our history of 200,000 years. So we need to look at this not as a natural occurrence, but something that has been taught to the society, taught to us from, you know, childhood, where people are like, oh yeah, boys are protectors, boys cannot cry, they need to be like strong and tough or whatever the shit, and women or like girls need to be like, oh, they need to play with Barbies and, you know, cooking sets and shit like
but
that.
if like 99, so my question would be like,
yeah,
my question to you would be, if like 99.9% of societies, because I don't know about that, I'm just gonna bite that bullet theoretically of that. I don't know the details of those people, of the people you just referenced, but like even if I were to bite that bullet, if 99.9% of like human societies had X characteristic, and you pointed to 0.01% that didn't, wouldn't it be more reasonable to assume that that was the instance of some type of like overbearing socialization within the society, as opposed to some underlying like inevitable human quality that's sort of, at least to some extent, substantiating the system?
What do you mean?
Sure. I'm not entirely sure you can do that, so there's like a couple things here. So the first part would be, that's entirely possible that all of like our more modern societies, like over the last 10,000 years, they specialized, right? Like in the case of say like men versus women, like they got like stratified into different roles because of like say different like biological advantages or disadvantages that like say weren't as like explicitly necessary or needed in less generalized societies, like the more generalized societies in the past, right? So it's entirely possible. The second thing is like for like Comrade Com, right? Just because like you can describe something doesn't mean that like we inherently agree with it, right? So like Destiny's saying that he like the patriarchy exists and that we're like talking about solutions inside like the scope of the patriarchy isn't like a tacit endorsement of like that existed. It's the idea of the descriptivity versus prescriptivity. Like this isn't what we're saying that has to happen. We're saying what is happening. So when we're talking about our solutions, it's important that we don't like go out into like fantasy land and say we should like return to, let's say, like generalized space hunter-gatherer communism, and like that'll solve all of our gender problems.
Yeah,
Clearly,
like
there are
I think
issues in society.
I think it'd be cool if everybody like had different preferences across the board that weren't so heavily gendered. But I mean, like the fact of the matter is that like a 20-year-old woman can walk into almost any male-dominated space on any part of this planet and pull a ton of different guys if she's medium levels of attractiveness, and a 30-year-old successful man can walk into a ton of female-dominated areas and pull like decently attractive women. Like that's just a fact of the world right now. Now, whether it's because of patriarchy or because of whatever, I mean, like we can point to those things, we can try to dismantle those systems, and we should, but we have to be able to speak to the reality of the world that we live in right now and not pretend that in 1 or 2 years, you know, with the right types of TV shows, we can just rewire everybody's brain completely.
I actually made a video about that. As a matter of fact, I staged someone at some point, and this person was talking about how they're not making things harder on men when they're being picky. And I wanted to elaborate on that in the dating scene, especially how, yes, women technically in quantity have more options, you know, compared to men. But you're not looking at these options. You're not looking at what quality these options are. You're looking at it like on a very you know, base level of you know, quantity. A woman can go into a bar and like pull 10 men. Okay, like what the fuck are those 10 men? Who are those 10 men? How many of them are abusers? How many of them are extremely fucking traumatized that never seek help in their lives? How many of them can cook and clean and fucking wash their asses? You would be surprised. Further Eli Monty's point, you would be surprised with how many horror stories about how shitty and how incompetent men are that I see on a daily basis every single day, you know, on a daily basis on my fucking comment sections.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised about that, but just real quick, like, I wouldn't be surprised about that at all. But the issue is that, like, as women have stepped into more traditionally masculine roles in society, which is awesome, no woman wants a man that stepped into a traditionally feminine role in society. So, for instance, today we see that women are going to school, graduating, and earning more money, but if you would have a man that was stepping into what a woman did, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, where he's like, hey, I'm decently attractive, I'm young, and I can take care of a house really well, any working woman, or most of them, would look at that man and go, that guy's a fucking loser. I'm not going to date that guy. I don't want a house husband.
I disagree.
Based on what?
It can be based on the two studies I linked. If you really have no personal experience whatsoever with this, I mean, you can go to the two studies that I've linked. You can look at a plethora of dating.
I honestly think like this.
That's why I'm
you could just go outside
hold up. Okay, we're gonna go to Cam, and then we'll go to Meat.
No, I actually like. Okay, I have no idea. I didn't see the research that you sent. I will check it. I promise I will. But at the same time, to your research,
abstract. You can read it really quickly. So one's just an abstract. You can read it really quickly. Sorry, keep
But
Okay.
also,
you continue. I'm gonna read this real quick.
Okay.
But also, I would say like, and again, this is speaking from like personal. I guess it's speaking from personal experience, so you can write me off as anecdotal if you want to. But I would say that there are actually quite a few women out there that are probably like, yeah, I'd be open if he was like, you know, wanting to take more of a house husband sort of role or what have you. I don't think it's as polarizing as you might think it is. I guess I would say that on average maybe there are more women that would probably say no to that, but I don't think it's like absolutely like no woman would be like, oh no, I don't want to deal with this peasant that wants to just
I mean,
exist in
it
a
like
house
I don't know how else to
with a
say it, but
woman's
like
job.
this is the issue with the disconnect between left and right. That is the case. Like I don't know how else to say it. Like even if we look at like super like I remember Tommy Lauren did this video that I got so frustrated with a few years ago, and like she's talking about like, oh yeah, you know, like I'm earning more. I want a guy that's not a loser. I need a guy that earns a lot of money. Like you can find this. You can Google like women date up economically, and you could find like study after study after study that shows that even as women are earning more money, they do not want to date somebody that's less financially well off than them. That's just like if you can't even acknowledge that. I mean, or I'm not trying to make it worse. I mean, but I'm like that is something that's played out time and time again, and it's like super ubiquitous throughout all of society.
Okay. So we're basing our assumptions on the study
That's a
that
good one.
said more than
That's
one in
a
5
solid
women,
mage
22% say they
to
wouldn't
grab,
date
and
someone
then we just
who
need a
makes
solid tank.
less money than them.
That's a
where
fucking-
we're
that's a
basing our
group.
assumptions, right? Because
We're basing
Warlock,
it on
warrior,
averages, like,
mage.
there's more than one. I linked another
No,
one.
because-
that's,
Solid
like,
group.
unpartnered adults, so
I would love
Even
to see that one as well, but this survey is, you know, asked to 3,000 single women who, you know, about their preferences. I'll just, you know, if we're basing our, you know, arguments on the amount of, you know, people who answered in one way or the other in surveys, I'll just tell you, I have right now on TikTok 300,000 followers. 91% of that is, you know, in binary senses, because TikTok doesn't have other genders, but in binary senses, AFAB or identifying as female. That is 270,000 people following me and contributing on my comments, saying exactly the opposite of whatever the shit this research is saying. If we're basing our assumptions on 3,000 people, I'll give you 200.
So real quick. So one, you mentioned sociology earlier. So if you want to allude to social sciences, we can do that. Surveys are going to be done in a way more controlled manner than here's everybody that tends to follow one ideologically leaning channel, right? I imagine if you do far left leaning content, I super don't care about what your community would say. Much as I wouldn't care about what my community would say. It's going to be super biased. So a study is going to be more valid. Number one.
Sure.
Yeah. Number two, like these data points can be repeated time and time again across multiple countries. It's not even like people don't do these surveys and they're like, oh my God, women are only dating men that are more financially successful than them. That's why. It's not like we're getting these huge like disapprovals of the nulls. It's like, oh my God, it's pretty expected, and I think it's like pretty common throughout almost all of modern day.
But why is it expected? That's what I'm saying. Why is it expected?
I think it's probably expected because biologically, the way that we're wired, women probably tend to want figures that can take care of them, and men tend to want people that are young and hot. That seems
biologically.
to be, biologically seems to be a thing. And then how that is like echoed throughout society, like we can change a lot of that. For instance, women are working more, which is cool, but we have to be able to contend with those baser forces if we're gonna have an honest conversation about what people want. Because here's something that I would go forth to say, and you might get upset, you might be wrong. I guarantee you that the vast majority of women in your comment sections that are saying shit like that would absolutely go for a 30 or 35-year-old dude if he was super financially successful in these literature. Guaranteed. Even if they would say otherwise, oh, I only date my own age, or I don't think I look for that thing. Like time and time again, you'll see it play out differently, where somebody will state a thing, but that's like given the opportunity to choose, that's not what they go for.
So I'm just going to pause us all. Eli, I'm just going to pause us all. So when it comes to data and stuff, I'm a big snob about this stuff. So if you guys would like to counter the factual data that they're outlining, we'll just need another study. We can't use personal anecdote or anything on that. We can absolutely tear apart the studies if you would like to do so, but we can't just treat this. We're not going to do any like dismissal of data points. I'm not saying anyone is. I just want to like have that.
No, that is 100% fair. And even in that case, again, I didn't read the entire thing. I just read the synopsis, the first paragraph. We are looking at 3,000 single women who answered the survey, and only 22% said they wouldn't date down. Now, what you're saying, Destiny,
Compared
is
to men,
you're all.
it's not in it's not in a vacuum. It's saying like, yes, 1 in 5 doesn't seem that big, but compared to 1 in 20, it absolutely is.
No,
Like,
but what I'm talking about right now is not compared to what I'm talking about right now is like in general what women prefer. If you want to compare it to men, yeah, obviously men don't care about, a lot of men don't care about the financial stability that women bring, because once again, that is not how the society is conditioned. That is not the norms that we live in.
But this is what I mean when I talk about. This is what I'm gonna.
So sorry, 1 second. So this is like actually important. Like I really like encourage everyone like to look at like this Pew stuff that I. So there's some really interesting things about unpartnered men versus unpartnered women and partnered men and partnered women, and how they relate financially. So this is from Pew about from adults aged 25.
Where is my cookie?
Right? So
I want my cookie.
Men in relationships versus men who aren't in relationships. Employed men are like 91% likely to be employed, versus unpartnered men are only 73% likely to be employed. The opposite is true for women, although it's like a smaller degree. In the same way, in terms of financially vulnerable, there's more financially vulnerable single men, but like women finding a partner, the financial vulnerability of women is like
what's happening, baby?
Versus partner versus unpartnered. So maybe you could say
Just trying to run some 22s, bro. Trying to get my fucking IO. I'm about to go to Virginia this next weekend, and I'm like not gonna be able to play at all.
Is that women, even if they're financially vulnerable, have less.
So hopefully tomorrow gives us like shit of fixes, and I won't ever feel bad. And then from tomorrow till Friday, I basically have to run my 15 keys to get my vault, and then potentially do a couple ones to get me IO. I probably won't get 3,200 by the weekend, but I'm at 3133.
More so than women to be able to have these relationships, and it isn't effective.
Yeah, I got my 3K, and I did a 20 in every instance, so I have all my portals. But I'd like to get 30. I don't know when the season ends, but I'd like to get like the next season at least get like 33, 3,400. I think that'd be pretty tight.
2, 1.
Right, so like there's like it's pretty clear, especially when women can have the same sort of financial vulnerabilities, but like have no.
Not stressing it too much.
Like it's because it seems on average, again, this isn't every person. And I'm sure every person in like Ham's like fucking chat is super based, and like they all like love 4 guys, right? Like we're all based fellow like proletariat skaters, but on average, there's like slightly men.
Watch your step.
Well, we have to acknowledge that if we're gonna tear down the
Warrior's gonna get a 2-shot. If he doesn't, worry.
1-to-1. I've been waiting a while. Can I get in here just for a sec?
We're gonna do meat and then
Yeah, I'll just say, yeah, that's fine. I appreciate it. I'll just say real quick, like, I think that, like, even when we're talking about money, maybe this will help bridge your reality.
That guy got fucking absolutely chomped.
Even if, like, it's not necessarily a holistic determining thing about money, I think that, like, that 22% that is more than towards, on average, towards, like, what women are preferring over men.
Watch your step.
That 22% is indicative of some underlying truth, because even like when of competency or reliability.
Great start, solid.
Like that, because even when we're looking at like the younger generations, like we've already talked about, like
very
where women are starting
promising.
We
wiped on the first pull of streets. So
by some measures, they're maybe starting to outer men on average are looking like they might because they're becoming more educated. Even then, I think like there's a descriptive reality we all share where you could go out and like. Even when, like where you can ask these younger generations, and even the women who are open to dating someone who makes liking them, I think they would still, like you could just go out and ask like 10, 20 random women, and you still get a lot of answers. Even
Tank is sus.
It would say, it would just be like, hey, you know, even if I'm open to dating
sorry.
I still don't want. There's a loser arc. There's someone who's like not doing anything, like not achieving anything.
That's what happens when I'm 28. Alright,
what is it? Yeah,
Tank is 3K, but he's 3K in DPS and tanking. And he came in as a DPS. But he queued as a DPS tank and he fucked it up.
What Destiny said, where
Tank is sus.
Where he said that it's like biological. I would have to disagree. I think in many cases, these are things that are that are, you know, they're norms. They're societal norms. They're things we have been taught. We've been conditioned. I don't necessarily think it's a biological thing. I think it's just something that.
Just trying to get 122. One more. I had one already, but I'm trying to get another 22 under the belt so I can just roll chill.
Tend to be, especially like in
I
Asia,
get 2 pluses for IO today, and then
tend to
I'll
be
be
more
relaxed.
patriarchal. But
We've chalked every
these are things that
22
we
I
have been
ran.
conditioned
Every
over here
one.
in Western society to believe. Not only that, but
no, correction. I've had one successful
in the room,
gambit.
You know what I mean? Like we said earlier. This might be
Which
me
is one of
going
the
back
easier ones,
farther. Area day. This might be me going back a little bit too far. But I mean, when we talk about, you know, older women, men not liking older women, there's an entire porn category that is like fetishized over
And all
called
women
MILF.
are like
As a
late
matter of fact-
20s. You are a MILF as soon as you aren't a teenager anymore.
Hold
Like,
on.
what are
Have
you
you seen
saying?
some of that? Not only that, but also like, sorry. Not only that, but when we talk, going back to the prompt, right, the original prompt of how are men failing in relationships, just because a man goes to a bar and he's, you know, financially stable and mature and stuff like that, or he presents that way, doesn't necessarily mean that that man is going to be successful in a relationship. He might be able to pull a few, maybe. He might be able to get a couple numbers, maybe. But then we get into, you know, the actual
Okay. Okay, this is gonna. I'm feeling. This is gonna be another chalk.
Then you're just not gonna do it.
We're doing a 22 sanguine depths, one of the harder tyrannicals, and our warlock is a 2100
Just quickly
warlock.
respond to that.
Doing a 22 sanguine depths.
You can go to any of these countries. And the gender
Like
roles.
Chinese foot binding of women. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sensing
Eastern
some,
side is not matriarchal. I don't know who said that.
Listen, I just
some-
said,
No, I understand that. Whatever chatter said that dude's on
consumable wastes coming, but
number one,
we'll
number
see.
two.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I think the MILF porn category is probably one of the strongest arguments that I could make, and that MILFs
Our
are
tank
people
is
that are like
2900.
24 and older. Okay. When you go to these porn
like the
sites,
biggest
a MILF is
DPS
somebody
check.
that is
How
like,
the
this
fuck
girl
are
will
we gonna
say
do
she's
it?
like 19 and she looks like she's 22 and she's actually like 25. Okay, like the age expectations of all of that are super fucked. And then number three, in terms of like, there's no difference in biology. I mean, like, women can comfortably have children up to about 35, right? And then men can do it into their 60s or 70s. I don't know if there's ever a point. I mean, at some point you run into like sperm motility issues, but like there are reasons why we could imagine biologically women are wired to get on the baby train a little bit sooner than men might be wired to, because men can afford to wait a lot longer than women can.
I mean,
maybe.
Hold on, wait. What part of that is a maybe?
It's not a maybe.
I want to know what part of that is a maybe.
But wait, no, the reason why I said maybe is because, like, I think biology only takes us so far. Then we implement, you know, the fact we implement, like, humanity, and the fact that, like, there is this level of, I guess, rationale and, like, understanding that separates us from the animals. It allows us to I guess, traverse, or I don't necessarily say transcend, but for lack of a better word, surmount, I guess, the biology and think like, oh, you know, examine other factors that come into play, such as, you know, maturity and other things.
I mean, we can never escape biology. It's always going to be a reality, right? Like, we can try to do things to, like, kind of get around it, but it's always going to be there, right?
I mean, it'll be there, but again, like,
no, but Monty, it really does matter. Monty, here's a really good example, right? So we're talking about like the fertility thing, right? So me and a person I'm seeing, we're both 24, right? So like I have a pretty good career right now. They're like in grad school, right? If we don't want to talk about fertility stuff, like treatments that they might have to do, they have like 10 years, like, which is also the start of their career, to have children. Either they have to forgo having children and like either do it like in their 30s and hope that like the fertility doesn't go away, or they have to have kids now, and it gives them a roadblock because it means they can't have the sacrifices, or one of us is going to have to like have sacrifices in terms of like our, say, career stability or our career advancement. So this isn't, say, like, there's not, biology is like the end-all be-all, but biology is directly impacting how societies operate, because all human beings, at least like in America right now, right, and most like,
Western, right?
Like, right. No,
I'm just
but
saying you can only take it so far.
Obama.
No, but it takes us so far, because imagine, like, say you want to have, say, me and my partner, we're both 24, we want to have 3 kids, right? We have to get 3 kids by the time they're like 35, and if they're trying to say like either become like a physical therapist or a doctor or something, like when they finish their grad school, they have to do that while having 3 kids and starting their career. While I can probably just keep doing the career that I'm already on, or one of us will have to make the sacrifice to stay home with the children, or in the very least, I won't have any like say things stopping me while they're pregnant. If they have 3 pregnancies to get through,
how's everything at the shipyard going?
Like almost like 2 years where they are less capable of like doing
nothing crazy,
like, making the sacrifices or doing like strenuous things at work.
How long are you? September, right?
Like, so
is how long you've been
like,
down here?
We can transcend them, but like they are so real in how it can affect society that like it's not biological essentialism to say that, and like we have to like contend with that. Otherwise, we're never gonna like fix any of these problems.
San Diego, even for me, bro, is like I
wouldn't.
wouldn't. I mean, maybe it's just me. I don't like going on vacation for too long.
We can acknowledge that, and I think we all do acknowledge those things.
I like my routine.
They only take us so far. And now, and again, I want to bring us back to the prompt. I think the original topic that we came here to discuss is what are the ways in which men are failing in
I think he's died. So we'll maybe move on. Is everyone broadly willing to agree that there are some level of biological differences between the 2 groups that are going to inform some level of psychological mate selection? I think most people are on board with that, correct?
I mean, on paper, yes, but at the same time, that also brings me back to the point that I made. A lot of these things that we are looking at are based on patriarchy. If women don't need men for financial security, then entirety of your argument falls apart, because then women are not like, hypothetically, then women should not be even dating men. The women who have financial security, if men are not providing financial security, they suck at emotional security or like emotional whatever comfort. They don't do any fucking domestic chores or shit. As you guys said, they're losers. Then why the fuck should women date men?
Doing chores isn't the loser archetype, to be clear. These are different things.
I might have misunderstood.
It's if you can only do chores, right? Like there aren't all these 20-year-old house husbands that everybody is desiring.
House husband arc. Let's
go.
It's
like people want. I guess this always like is interesting to me when people get, especially intersectional people, when they get very weird on this, like there are no biological differences. Do we think that, for instance, once patriarchy is eliminated, do we think there's going to be that the pressure or the issue between men raping women and women raping men, do we expect that to equalize ever, or is that always going to favor men in terms of power?
What do you think the process of eliminating patriarchy looks like?
Whatever you think it is, we can both imagine.
So because like systems of power are not going to be eliminated as long as there are oppressors and there are oppressed. So if
theoretically, if we could wave a wand,
no, if you can wave a wand, then you would be eliminating everything that makes patriarchy exist in order to eliminate patriarchy to begin with, and that power, struggle between men and women, whether it comes to I guess physical strength or rape or whatever you're talking about, domestic violence, all those things need to be eliminated in order.
Sure, but then you've just pointed out how the only way to do that in this case, for example, is to equalize men and women biologically, which is not the world we live in, right? That's sort of the problem.
That's what we said.
Or even more importantly, it sounds like you're saying that patriarchy does indeed then come from biology. It is a biological thing.
No, but you don't understand what I'm putting through. Do you think people in fucking hunter-gatherer, that's why I brought that up. Do you think people in hunter-gatherer societies had those biological differences today? Like
in most of those societies, absolutely yes, of course.
First of all, when we are talking about biological differences, we are not talking about a biological difference in the size and strength between like I don't know an elephant and a fucking mice. Women might be biologically slightly less strong than men, sure, whatever, but we are living in 2020. No, but
that's a meaningful difference.
That's not.
Hold on. So I'm just going to say this right now. Right now it is 1v3. So I just want to make sure that when Cam is talking, that we're letting him speak. Yeah.
It is not a meaningful difference in 2022. If you eliminate, like, by educating men or by, I don't know, whatever the fuck do you want to do, because there's always this question to the left, okay, how do you want to solve this? Let me ask center, how do you want to do this? Because all I'm hearing is like, oh, this is inevitable, this is going to happen, then how do you want to solve this? Because this is not a meaningful difference. We are living in 2022. Nobody's hunting. Nobody's using fucking spears. If you want to fucking lift heavy things, you can lift heavy things with like fucking, aid with tools and machinery. That is not a meaningful difference. Only so far it is a meaningful difference when it comes to, protecting yourself, in which case we have weapons like fucking guns, arm up, I guess. But at the same time, you teach men not to fucking harm women. You don't need to worry about that fucking difference to begin with. So the answer is, or should be, in my opinion at least, you might have different opinions, is to like raise your sons not to be fucking rapists.
So like the thing that we were asking is that in you're correct for some of that. So like the big thing is that in the majority of scenarios, you're right, physical strength no longer really fucking matters. You don't have to be like a giant jack dude to like sit at a fucking cubicle all day at all. But in certain instances, in this case, say like physical altercations or rapes, right? You can probably say that a person or a group of people that are physically on average say like 50% stronger than another group, if all other things being equal, there's probably going to be at the very least more successful perpetrators of rape from men. Everything else being equal. Because when you say like, oh, like we have like technology now, and people have guns. Okay, but like, is every situation like, is every woman going to be packing? Is every woman gonna like start like being like crazy strong in the gym and stuff now? Because like, let's say like take Destiny for example, right? He's like he exercises like semi-regularly. He's like an average sized guy. He could probably physically overpower the majority of women, right?
Okay, but then you're still saying Destiny is someone who exercises. Women who exercise can match in power to average men as well.
Very few. I am stronger than like 99.999% of women on this planet, unless they're like taking roids and like they're like a top tier athlete. They're not overpowering me, and the vast majority of them are not overpowering.
In either cases, what you're doing right now is, and I don't think you're doing this intentionally, but if you present the argument that okay, men are stronger than women, that is going to cause like rape to happen, then you're invalidating the experiences of men who are raped by women. Now you're invalidating them as like, okay, you're lesser man, or like you're not man or something.
No, okay, wait. So real quick. No, okay, hold on. So real quick. Nobody's invalidating anybody's experiences. Okay, people can have negative experiences for a wide variety of reasons. Okay, we have to be careful not to play like linguistic traps to say that like you can't point this out because by pointing this out you've offended a whole class of people. The reality is that on average, the average man, given the opportunity to, could tear apart 95% of women in society. The average man could. That is a power differential that exists that has to be acknowledged when we talk about things like dating dynamics. There's a reason why we give different advice to men and women when it comes to dating, and it's not just because of patriarchy, and it's not just because of society. It's because on average, if you're a man, you don't usually have to be worried that a woman is going to be able to overpower you and rape you. Where if you're a woman, that is the case. You have to worry about that. So this is like one example where there is an actual descriptively difference between the biology of like a man and a woman, where you have to keep these things in mind when we talk about what we should do as a society. And from there, we can extrapolate a whole bunch of other things too. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, in that case, you all agree when I say, teach your sons not to fucking rape.
No, I think everybody here. Or wait, hold on. Were there any pro-rape people on this panel? Let me just check.
No.
Anybody? Okay, saying that we should teach people not to rape. That's like saying that I'm gonna leave my car unlocked in the parking lot every single night, and hopefully everybody taught their people not to steal. It doesn't make any sense. We have to take the world as it is. It would be cool if there were no rapist men, and that would be great. And we should tell people not to rape, but there's still gonna be rapists in society. You're never gonna have a society with 0% rape. That's not gonna happen. Not to mention the fact that a lot of rape isn't like people going out and raping people. It's people having very poor understandings of consent or poor understandings of like situations that end up like raping for a variety of reasons as well. So that idea of like just tell people not to rape, I think is a really simplistic way to view those types of transactions between men and women.
I didn't say just tell people not to rape. I said raise your fucking sons properly.
But how does that help us? We don't even
in communicating to your sons that message, it still might be important to like the part of the things, the part of explaining that to them and why you need to have this conversation with them in some way. Like part of that might be recognizing the descriptive reality of like why you need to have a particular conversation, like why men exist in a unique way in this sphere, right? Like I think women generally, like I think if you asked women if in 2022 there was some meaningful difference in like that power dynamic out there in the world, I think like I don't know. I think they would like unanimously agree that there is a meaningful difference.
So,
You know what I mean?
in that case, okay, let me roll back to something Destiny just said. Some of the cases, some of these rape cases happen because of misunderstandings or like people who are not taught consent and everything. Now, I grew up until 19 years old in Turkey. That's where I'm from, right? So I don't know how it is in United States or where you guys are. So tell me any differences that exist. But we had sex education in, I think it was high school. I was never
Oh,
taught
have you
of
seen
consent in school and sex education. Was
Everything
that the
Everywhere
same
All
for
at
you
Once?
guys?
We get taught, but like
It's really good. It's really
the
good.
way they teach consent is very, very, very not primeval, very primitive, very primitive. We don't learn very much.
It's
The
like
Top
don't rape
Gun
people in college.
follow-up.
If you see someone who's drunk, don't rape them if they're asleep. Don't do that. Like
Yeah.
it's very like they're not like good conversations.
But like they don't go into detail what informed consent is. They don't go into detail what like enthusiastic consent.
No, Cam. If I grant you everything you're saying, the difference is we teach every person. If every person on the planet, like male, female, non-binary, MB, intersex, whatever, every person is like 10 years of like non-rape training, right? The idea is if there's some members of the population, like male or female or whatever, like extra, right, are raping people. If there's a biological difference that improves someone's chances in a physical altercation, would we be comfortable saying that like one group is most likely going to have more successful instances of that? And I say successful like as in like they succeeded in raping, not that it's a good thing to rape. That's what we're asking you. Is that if we like do all these things, like you're saying, we teach men how to be right, we teach women how to be strong, right? And everything's a baseline now. We have all the respectful women. We have all the respectful women. The only people who aren't are fucking crazy and they just want to rape people, right? How many of the just crazy people who are men are going to be more successful than the just crazy people who are women? That's the question.
Awesome. I'm going to pause you guys for 2 seconds. Eli's having a really bad storm, so Aristocracy has stepped in to kind of fill his role. If Eli is able to get his power back, he will also join us. We'll just have a slightly larger panel. But just so that everyone knows, this is Aristocracy. Probably most of you have met her. I don't think Cam has yet, though. So you guys
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Sorry. Not to Hans. Can you restate like really quickly the last couple of points that you just made? So
so basically, if we teach everyone in society like mega ultra super like how to not rape people, and there's a small percentage of people who are still going to rape people, and they're both men and women, the physical difference of men being slightly strong, that being considerably stronger than women, normally means that like men are going to be more successful at raping women, based on like there just being that physical power dynamic differential. That's like the thing. You could say that women might like sexually assault men in other ways, but in the case of just the physical conversation, men have an advantage physically.
So, in this case, okay, let me agree on what you're saying on the basis that, sure, men who are stronger, who are fucking psychotic, who didn't give a fuck about 10 years of, education on consent, on not to rape people, are still
and
going.
Women. We have raping women as
and
well.
Women.
Women can be rapists too, right?
They can be, and women, but
Feminism.
we are talking about how men are stronger and more successful at raping people, right? So I'm basing it on that. But in this scenario, we are using strength as something that is used by one gender to perpetuate something negative to the other gender. We are not looking at it as like a positive thing between in the dating scene between two genders.
None of these things are being looked at as positive or negative. They're just realities that exist.
Not prescriptive.
Yeah, they're just realities that we have to like keep in mind. That's all I'm trying to say. Because when we start losing tabs of like what is actually happening, then we start making weird statements like men and women's power difference isn't that big. Which now we've gotten into how do we talk about like sports, or how do we talk about like dating? Like now we've gotten into really weird areas where we're kind of erasing other important conversations that we
No, the reason I ask is because like the entire conversation about like rape started with like biological differences between men and women, and I said the strength difference is not meaningful when it comes to dating.
Sure, but I think the strength difference is a little bit meaningful when it comes to hookup interactions, which is arguably the lead into it.
But these things in general change based on time period and stuff.
No, they don't.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you that like biology often plays a role, but how biology plays a role depends on what are the current needs of that society.
I don't think that's true. I don't know why people keep saying that. You don't have societies where women were out there like waging war, or where they were doing like heavy lifting, or where men were bearing children. Like this is not true, right? For the most part, like our gender roles and our sexuality have been pretty static throughout our 10,000 years of human history, recorded human history.
Yeah, but gender roles, I agree with you, but gender roles do not equal.
Well, that seems to be the case, that that's generally how it plays out for a variety of reasons.
5,
Not that that's a good
4,
thing. I'll say that every
3,
time. I think it's a good thing.
2,
Is a thing.
1.
Even in societies that were super matriarchal or had other systems.
Slock should know what he's doing. He is a.
Women still primarily were the caregivers and men and all that kind of stuff. But they still had a different demonstration of how they showed power and who was dominant. So, like, even though I agree there can be like certain individual like similarities that have biological inferences, how it shows. I think it's like you don't want to just be
No, I agree, but we can't even get to that conversation. Like, we haven't even started to talk about anything. We're at the area of the interesting conversation after. Okay, given this set of biology, what can we do to solve one biological reality they're all constantly pregnant and just giving birth to that really sucks, okay? And I think as a people society, we would aspire to something better. And I think we have. I think we've done a lot better. So that's cool. So in some ways, our biology isn't the most important thing, right? There are women that are stronger than men, who are a lot of training. There are men that are caregivers in households, which is probably not normal, historically speaking. So we can do it. But I'm just saying that, like, we're going to have these conversations about how to socially engineer people to do certain things. We have to start in a shared understanding of biologically what is true. Because when you run around saying things, that one guy, he's not hearing enough. They're saying things to be like, oh, like, just be yourself, and people are like, when you start filling people's heads with stuff like that, and then they go on an actual dating market, and now everything is failing. Nothing is working. Women are doing things that a lot of men don't talk about. Men are doing things that a lot of women don't talk about. Now everybody's like super confused and everything's around you.
I think like a lot of like your issues are just like I guess like the population the population. But I don't actually like see a lot of that stuff, I guess, in day to day. And it's hard to say, like, again, because there's so many of these things. I was talking about this in Aaron. Like, so many of these things
Got it.
on subcultures and are so subjective. I really think the primary thing that both men and women is social status. And what depends on that social status is like very, very different depending on, the subculture. And one subculture might be like, getting on the basketball team, like women might be another subculture and might be earning a ton of money, etc. Like, I think, and especially when people are saying that women are primarily focused on, especially like successful earning more money. It's actually, I wouldn't actually say that's the case. It's usually they want a man that has either equal or social status. So if they were like, say, successful in business, they wouldn't mind dating a guy who wasn't earning as much, but if he's a famous politician and stuff, people are like social status, right? That's invited to the
That might be true, but you're talking about social statuses in the United States. Yeah, it's almost there's very few examples of people very high social status who are going to become like very just doesn't
I would also argue
comparing like very like large inequities really very poor people to very rich people. I think like we're just looking at like a pool of just upper middle. I don't think you start getting significant information.
Okay, but for Eris, specifically, but you talked about like say like status, right? So let's like brief like break down what it means like to American, Canadian like society is attributed with status for like men, right? It's like about being like extremely it's like about like demonstrating, and recently, which is really cool, it's about being successful, it's about being wealthy, it's about being powerful, right? For men, it's much less like they'll be like eye candy, but like being super attractive.
Special coming.
Is not nearly like the same sort of like standing in society that gives you the status as women. There aren't say like a unemployed like model, right? Like no, but like something like I'm sure it depends but on average, right? So we're talking about status. Like the way that men and women right now in society, I'm saying it's good, Sam. I'm saying that this doesn't happen.
Jesus,
Is that the way
what
they
is this
view
damage
status?
we're taking now?
And so we want to try and level that field. We have to make it more okay with the attractive things about house numbers. And like also make it like currently working on like allowing them to be super successful like Giga Chad.
Yeah.
Even if you look like say like successful women right now, right? A lot of successful women right now, they
Special coming.
being attractive in the game, whether it's like a high powered like CEO, or whether it's like like aging actresses. Like there's the joke about like Hollywood how like actresses kind of like just disappear when they're
I
like
agree,
when they turn
but
like 40.
how that gets demonstrated is very different in different societies, right? And even in different subcultures. Like I've existed in multiple different subcultures just in growing up in Canada, and the way and what's considered attractive both in men and women is insanely different. Like what's considered attractive and like as in an Orthodox Jewish man is like being super educated.
Special
and
coming.
being really knowledgeable on the Bibles, and maybe being the son of a rabbi. Like that's like obviously, and a lot of these things like they're just they change like based on different subcultures. I think like when we're giving people advice, if we're talking about like overall government policies, which I feel like we're not, then looking at averages. But if we're talking about like advice and just like giving average advice to individuals,
Target you.
then saying like yeah, you've got to look at your subculture and what's achievable and what's looked at as attractive. For example. So the idea of like a trophy wife, when people have this image of a trophy wife, I don't think that in very, very wealthy circles,
Special coming.
That I've seen like in the United States and in Canada, in those wealthy circles, like the old idea of a trophy wife just is not a trophy wife at all. Like that doesn't exist anymore. A trophy wife still exists, but they're different. So now a trophy wife is supposed to be super educated. In fact, like the more degrees that trophy wife has, the more of a trophy she has. She still could be really attractive, but she's usually expected to be a little bit older. Like there are just different. It's changed, right? And these things like change like dependent. And I'm sure in like in like a celebrity community in LA, a trophy wife is different.
Special coming.
So it's just like these things are just so dependent on and so subjective. The most common thing that I just see is social status.
I think that it's really we have to like get off this whole like in some rare cases like this thing will happen because it's so destructive. I don't like it how leftists are so keen to talk about individual examples or get into like the nuance of things when it suits them, but then when it doesn't, they'll just like speak with broad strokes, or they'll do these other things. Like there are so many like broad generalizations I'll see of like men in general or whatever. Like, oh, men are this thing over and dating for the whole time. And then when it comes to like, oh, well, what if women prefer dating? Well, in some very rare ultra orthodox Jewish communities, I know there are going to be something like this is like we're talking like a 1% of a 1% of a 1%. And even a lot of the things that you're bringing up, like for instance, well, men are expected to be very educated. Well, what does that mean? Probably not with like gender studies degrees, right? That's my guess. It's probably going to be educated in fields like professors that are making pretty decent money. It's not going to be like this guy is like super educated and liberal art. So anyways, you're bringing up the group of people that make more money than literally any other fucking group in the entire world. Like, why would you like?
I'm talking about because I was talking about
Watch your step.
Because there's a difference of what's considered attractive versus with Orthodox Jews and non-Orthodox Jews, right?
And I'm sure there are some differences, but for the most part, this is going to track like 98% of the time throughout society, probably even in these subcultures. There might be some varying differences, but
it seems like your frustration is. I'm not a lefty, right? So if you're bringing up criticism for leftists, I usually will agree with you. So I feel like it's kind of sometimes I think like especially like with the comments you just said, it seems like those positions are somewhat like reactionary to those leftists rather than like the positions themselves that you would normally just subscribe to. It seems like you're very frustrated with how lefties or like how liberal culture talks about these things.
Yeah, like I'm frustrated because it's wrong, but my views aren't.
Which I think is valid.
But my views aren't reactionary.
Awesome.
My views are that if I'm going to talk to an audience, right, I'm not going to sit here because reactionary.
Gulps in,
like,
huge
oh,
gulps,
your
mine
personality
gulps.
doesn't matter. Oh, if you're a man, all you need to do is.
I'll save mine for the next poll.
Oh, if you're a woman, older than 24, better kill yourself. No chance for you, right? I'm not saying shit like that. No, that would be reactionary. What I'm saying is reality. This is the reality of the world. Don't opine for some subculture that you don't even know where these people exist. But like, here's the reality as it is. If you want to be successful in these types of dating markets, right? You basically the only people you can list right now are red pillers. These people on the left are going to come at you with this, oh, just be yourself, and like lots of people prefer different things. Well, thanks, chief. Anything, right? Like that piece of advice is meaningless. It's feel good.
Literally, no one on the left says that.
I agree that advice. Look, I agree with all your criticism. Yeah, it's like totally valid. It's just it's the conclusion that you end up coming to.
Wait, what is the conclusion that I've come to that you think is incorrect or reactionary?
I wouldn't say necessarily incorrect, but like this blanket statement that this is just like always what is attractive and that's always
because
like
it has been.
Men. But that's not necessarily true.
It absolutely is true. In almost all of society, men are typically valued for their accomplishments, and women are typically valued for their age. That's shitty. I think it's a shitty thing. But like through 10,000 years of human history, more or less, it's always been the case. So if we want to break that mold, we can. But you have to start by recognizing that fact.
I just don't find it super useful, like, when we're talking about giving advice to people, right? Like, like I'm sure, like you, like the ins and outs of like Jewish dating. I know fucking nothing about that, like whatsoever. Like my fellow anti-Semite Steven, when I give like dating advice, I normally mean like talk about top dating. That's what we're talking about right now. I'm talking about like in general, what can men do? Because like again, I live in Virginia, right? Maybe my advice isn't super good for men living in Utah. There's probably some similarities I can give to a man, regardless of geographical location inside the United States. They can probably help him with dating. They can probably, in Cam's case, probably
fucking it up, bro.
less of a rapist and like make him more successful while like saying, oh yeah, you can be a special public and do whatever you want to do. You realize that you're not providing anything of value to women and you're not interested in any particular way. And you probably need to find something about yourself to change, right? Like you can be a quirky fucking deal. I have fucking anime posters all over my apartment. But I also, like, I'm a single guy at 20. I'm a guy at 24. I have two guys in my life. I take care of myself. So, like, you're allowed to be quirky, but you also have to, like, check certain boxes. Or at least it makes it easier if you check those boxes. And, like, everyone, like, Destiny's chat knows me. I'm fucking schizo. Like, but I'm schizo as fuck, and I still, like, hold, like, these. So it's, like, it just depends. Like, but there are still things that, like, are benchmarks.
And when you can't agree
I agree.
upon
I guess I'm just. I
reality,
feel like you guys are
people
over.
become resentful.
That's what I'm saying. I think on average, like when it comes to like the dating advice, like techniques and stuff are probably like can be really useful. But I think people need to focus on like who they find attractive and think about who that person is. And getting to the conclusion of that. But again, like these things are just so different and so dependent on subcultures that it's like you want to be careful with something completely blanket because it's just not always the same.
I think we're in
So for this panel, we're going to stick to the questions are relevant, general and broad. So we have to make some general and broad things about society because that's what I right? Harris, I was saying. Yeah. So I'm gonna actually.
Sorry, one second. I misspoke. I have a partner. Like, they're gonna get my ass.
So I'm gonna go back to the two prompts. So probably I'll read the prompts.
Watch your step.
Groups. Right? Well, there's some aggregate differences. What are some fair criticisms of societal expectations of men that they're not meeting? Basically, a kind of question. How are men kind of sucking into partners
Watch your
in
step.
a modern dating how can they improve?
Okay, based on everything we just said, here's the number one branching point, okay? If you can be a guy who's fucking 25 years old,
Watch your step.
have your shit together, you are ahead of time. Have a fucking job, finish school, that's great. Have an apartment that isn't a fucking mess. Know how to take care of yourself.
Watch your step.
Laundry, dishes, you don't even know how to cook anymore, okay? 25, all you know how to do the dishes, do laundry. You're not a fucking lunatic, not some schizo, overly clingy person, not crazy abusive, not crazy fucking weird. If it seems like apparently there's a very tall order, but if you can like hit some very basic benchmarks on, could I invite a woman into my life, have a place to live, I'm providing some level, I don't even need to like fucking take care of you. You look like you have your shit put together, you're a real life adult.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna be ahead of little other than
Let me just relax, guys. Just have a second, take a breath. Everyone just collect themselves for a second.
I would disagree with that. You ever agree with this prescription?
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know, I'll just add, I don't know if it's just staying in conversation, but I'll just add, like, part of the reason it's so important to agree on that is that, like, and it's a weird sort of horseshoe thing on the
You're safe. You're good. I'll fucking power heal you, bud.
And that's good. Similar things where when we start to prescribe to other sort of weird problems, other than that, when we can't agree on the scripted reality, then when you start prescribing to people, they're going to become resentful because they're going to butt up against that. And I don't know, when we have these...
Is this the boss time?
I feel like the breach of expectations of just being able to agree on fair expectations of reality is where a lot of resentment comes from, where you end up in
It is. Okay, let's go.
Why don't they just like me for me?
Should.
Why can't I just... Like, why do I have to fix all these unfair expectations of them?
So one of the things that I think is primarily like that what it feels like we're in this where it actually ends up being incredibly unfair in a lot of ways for both parties. And depending on the relationship, it can really one side. But for example, I know a lot of girls feel very it feels like in order to be seen as like a
Target you.
perfect, and the beauty standards are just continuously going up and being crazy. And on top of that, they also have to have degrees, and then they also have to have a job, but they still have to be the primary caregiver. And still have to cook, and still have to do all those things. But they also have to look like a cool girl, like keep salt all the time and all that kind of stuff. Because it seems like they care too much about their figure, then they'll look like another really feminine girl. But then they still have other and that's really frustrating. And then with guys, I mean, we've talked about all the double standards. But I think it just creates like this really toxic environment. So like I understand why.
Jesus.
Yeah, I would say like the majority of guys. It's gonna sound really toxic, but I think the majority of guys probably don't give a fuck if a girl has like a people I don't think that even today, as far as a lot of guys don't necessarily care about that. I would agree though that there are like really negative stereotypes. Each other, but
bringing it back to
anecdotally, for example, anecdotally, I guess with the types of guys that I was going for on average, they found me more attractive. They would go for me more often. Once I got my even though I noticed that
Are we just gonna bust all of our fucking...
bring up your...
we don't have the GPS without everybody out. Manifestations and stuff.
Like, are you walking into a bar and saying like, here's my grad degree? Or like, how is this even coming up in like a first conversation?
Just in academic circles and friends.
Okay, if you're specifically like in an academic circle, yeah, then maybe in that like this is why I'm talking about the sub of the sub of the sub. Like in these hyper specific circles, maybe, but like outside broadly, like if you were to hop on like Tinder, Hinge, OkCupid, or go to a bar, or like just be in like class with people or have coworkers, I don't think that you having your grad work finished or not finished is like ever going to be the difference between a guy giving you a shot or not. Like that's only going to happen in a hyper specific sub group.
But wait, by that same logic, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding, by that same logic, then men's wealth or success doesn't matter either. You need to be good looking, especially if you're on Tinder, unless you're like wanting, I have this much money, I have this many possessions, then for someone to actually give you a chance, you need to be a good looking man by that logic. Am I misunderstanding you?
Being a good looking man can be important, yeah, for sure. But men can get away with looking, there's a wider variety of what's acceptable in society for a decent looking man versus women end up getting constrained to this very hyper narrow point of like what is beautiful. That's why like you'll have people like Seth Rogen that even women will say like, oh, like that guy's cute, like, you know, I'd be with that guy. That's cool.
Seth Rogen is a celebrity.
Exactly. but you'll never have that equivalent for even women's celebrity. Look at how many people make fun of.
Right, we
Amy
got
Schumer
this.
for
We got
her
this.
weight,
We got
right?
this,
There are plenty
boys.
of
Don't
guys that are just as
trip. We're
chubby as shit that
fucking.
never get
Yeah.
paid
If we
for
kill
weight the
this
same way
boss,
that
we're
there's
fucking
a
golden.
narrower band of like what women are allowed to look like in society versus what men are allowed to look like in society.
And like to defend Cam for a second, like you are correct in that yes, being like super attractive or being like super photogenic is very helpful on dating apps. Like because those like that's the easiest part where people see you, but also you can demonstrate your status in Tinder photos. Like oh, if you're a guy like it's like crouching on top of a really nice car, right? Or like you're wearing like fancy suits, like at parties.
Target you.
Demonstrate your status visually. But again, it is easier if you're a schlubby guy who doesn't have you're having like interesting shots of getting you. You're not an asshole who makes you guys like take pictures.
Target you.
First thing that you ask, where are you from and what do you do? Right? And if someone says, oh, hey, like, I'm an unemployed high school dropout, or like, oh, I have an MBA, like people are probably like, oh, this like guy's got something going on, same age, like
target you.
No.
But do you see like how all of this stuff is so like dependent on like the self-love?
No. Going to bars and Tinder are not very outside of basic things. Like they happen all the time. Like no matter who you are, where you go.
We got this, boys.
I
This is
know
it.
a lot of proposals
This is our
are,
fucking our jam.
like it's fine.
I would agree that most people in the population are
Target you.
broadly good transgender dating. Everyone agree with that?
I don't know what the numbers are, so I wouldn't say.
Like I can confidently say that over half of the people that have gone to a bar or have done a dating app are over 20, like 1 year. Like one.
Come on, Baba.
Even if the particular house couple is rejected, I don't think there's some underlying right? And that's probably what we said. So like, for example, like, even within like just to use your like I don't know academic or Jewish stuff with like some well-educated Jewish
Target you.
like that. Like even within that subgroup, like there's some commonality. Like I don't know, not just being lazy, like not being some lazy fuck, just not doing anything.
You got this, Baba. You got this, Baba.
There's some kind of commonality here between these things, and like, and sometimes within certain, like one example of to reveal the argument, like one example of a subculture that I've experienced has been like there's a lot of girls out there, a lot of guys don't even realize this. There's a lot of girls out there who like. I've heard girls say things like, "Man, you know, I don't care if a guy's just a total gamer nerd. It's like if he can rant and rave passionately about those DPS optimizers.
Damn, bro.
Man, I love that shit. And it's not that they give a fuck about DPS optimizers, but regardless of whatever heuristic they're using in some cultures they're attracted to, there's still some underlying commonality there, right? So for example, I don't know, confidence or passion or not.
I think you guys can survive, bro. That casket's gonna fuck us.
There are norms, right? Like and I'll go back.
Nice time. You guys got this. You guys got this. I believe in you. You fucking got this, baby.
In the Orthodox Jewish world, being,
Easy.
So in both those worlds, in both the Orthodox Jewish
Piece of
world
fucking
and
cake,
the
baby.
wealthy, educated Jewish dating world, right? They're two different, even though they're like similar.
That's a rough
In
boss.
both of
That's
those
a rough.
worlds,
That's a
the
rough.
role of a woman is
We still
important.
got
It doesn't
a bit of time.
And
Not
I
a
would say
lot.
probably in most cultures,
20
age
minutes
is
almost. A
important
little
for
over.
women
18.
primarily. The thing is that what determines and how that
Well, under.
plays out in the details is different. So what is the age that is considered young? So in the Orthodox Jewish world, what's considered too old to get married is 22 to 25, and after 25, it's just like you're basically young. Okay, in the non-Jewish dating world, that's considered in the non-super religious world, that's considered incredibly young. And if you get married before 30, you're considered like a loser who isn't accomplished. And in the Orthodox
This is a
tradition,
doable
it's,
group.
like, totally different.
I think the Gauntlet's
So,
one of the easier ones.
again,
It's way
there
easier
are
with the
these
vent
underlying
tier.
factors where they are
But we don't have a
related,
vent tier,
but
so
how
I'm
they
gonna be
demonstrate
put to the test.
look different.
No buff,
And
straight
what
raw.
that age is, and what that number is, and what, how attractive.
But we did it. We
how
did
we
the
get
hardest
that
boss
demonstrate their
in
social
Tyrannical.
status. That's what we're doing.
I think
I'm not really sure, like, I'm sure, like, it's really helpful, but again, like, I think
we need to make some time up. So we need to get both of them together, and we'll
I'd
fucking
say
run it.
it's more helpful advice like, for a person.
Grab them.
And no matter what you do, right? If you don't want to have
Oh, we don't need to do like that.
Right? Like, so, like, you only play video games, you only watch anime, you're like the whitest of the white, like you never go outside.
Yep, keep it going, 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 keep it going. We got it, we got it, we got it.
Speak like, you know, confidently.
It's exactly what we're doing. We're doing the right thing here. Yup. I'm gonna pop. Let the hunter go do his thing.
I go bot and I die again and again and again and again and again and again. Terrible. People probably won't like appreciate that conversation. That is super helpful. Again, like I'm struggling it can demonstrate differently across society. Yeah, like you also just said it. Younger women like are more appreciated in traditional Jewish cultures. Younger women are apparently more appreciated in like general culture as well. So like
defensive.
I'm not sure how that's like giving that advice like better. Like
but subcultures in Poland majority to general. So I understand what you're trying to say, what you're messing up trying to say when you say like let's not focus on one subculture over the other, but subcultures together create the majority.
Defensive.
Yeah, but the majority.
And there are commonalities that we
more people like do like more people go to bars and say go on dating apps than one any person on your street, or even like all of us together, right? So like more people to do that than you know the 300,000 people that like are something on TikTok or like the 400,000 that are
So
we're talking about
moving past like the super gender stuff. What Professor D said is actually people like women like guys that are really interested in something. Assuming you hit like some of the bars, right? Like you know, a certain guy saying something is gonna come differently if he lives with his mom and dad versus like, oh, he's on his own, but he's also into this like geeky hobby. And now we can talk about different senses. There are gonna be some women that are always going for that. There's gonna be a some women that go, oh, cool, he's like into something really cool. It's gonna depend on like what other criteria you then.
We have fucking 3 range, bro. You shouldn't even be anywhere near me. You should be.
is that men don't have hobbies or men don't have things they can talk about. What would your recommendation be?
Range 5.
Being able to talk about that, either like finding new hobbies or being have better. What would your description for that for those kind of people?
Defensive.
I mean, it's going to super depend on. There are two. I don't know if this can be generalized for them, but there are two broadly different ways of relationships. One is seen as like this is my lover and my best friend.
No, we're gonna wipe.
Another is seen as like this is my.
There's no way we do this, boss. It's 3.6 mil with 3 people, but hey, yo, we can take all the ones we want now.
Some is one shared hobby or interest, some like watching TV shows together. But if you're in the relationship where like you're the wife,
Range 5.
boyfriend are like in very different social circles, you can see some like but that's going to depend on the partner. And I know that there are like really big divergences in like how much time do they want to spend.
Defensive.
Also, that is one of the things that patriarchy actually did a very big disservice to men when it comes to there's certain masculine things that is expected a lot of men to enjoy, right? It's like whether it is video games or football or shit like that. Now, I'm not saying this every man falls down to this category, but in you get what I mean. When it comes to those,
I don't know, bro.
norms,
like you were right next to me. You literally fucking blink. What are you talking about?
Allowed to be interested.
Like, I'm a priest. I have to run everywhere. I'm not Night Fae, motherfucker.
Like, less manly or weird.
You should be able to fucking run across the goddamn whole zone.
I think both men and women have a problem.
But you get fucking blinked out by me? Like, are you joking? I have nowhere else to run, bro.
In like the past 30 years, like kind of feeling entitled.
Probably not being able to do another one.
entitled to feeling relationships. Like women have been told to feel entitled like that from tons of movies, and so have men. And I think like the answer a lot of the times is just to think of like who you find attractive and work on yourself in order to just be the type of person that that person would be attracted to, instead of just feeling like angry or frustrated or blaming other things like patriarchy or anti-patriarchy or whatever about like why people are not finding you attractive or why you're.
Let's see. I'm intrigued. Let's see. Nope, not that one. Nope, not that one. Nope, not that one. Let's see. Maybe I did do something wrong. I'm gonna be that way. Let's see. So he doesn't. Okay, let's see. Actually, yeah, back it up. This is the first bad spot. I'm spreading out. I go to the other side. I should have gone left, maybe. He's Night Fae and a mage. I've finished topping everybody off. I don't want that. Okay. Now where is he at? He's over there. I'm seeing nothing left. Him and Kigo are... I am on the exact opposite side of this guy at this point. Yeah, I mean, I had 2 there, 1 there. Let's see. I'm on the exact opposite side. Spheres come out. Me and him are on the same side now. I could have grabbed that. I mean, if I grab these 2, I'm dead. Or at least on thin ice. I have Fade. He grabs 1, 2. He would have had 3. What do you... Dude, what are you talking about? How do you have 3? But I don't... You shouldn't die from 3, right? Maybe. He has Time Warp. If he registers... Or not Time Warp. What is it? Jump back. Whatever the fucking shit is. If he... I mean, I would have survived at 3, but I would have had to use a cooldown. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that was a... I don't think that's necessarily my fault. He had a cooldown to use. If he knew he wouldn't have got it, there's no other way. I mean, he should have used the cooldown if he didn't. I saw like 5 near us. I took 3 of the 5. He had 1 that I couldn't reach, and I got 1 that he couldn't reach. So he had 3, and I had 4. And he died. So that's... David, I'm gonna peace out. Peace.